The men stood over a bag in which something was moving and could not decide whether they were doing the right thing. One of them irritably told the other to stop making up nonsense because it was time for them to leave. They threw the bag and left. Suddenly a hand jumped out, and then the whole girl, scared and trembling. She couldn't believe that she was back in time when she was 10 years old, as if the years had disappeared. The girl hesitated. Was this really not a dream? But if this is reality, she began to remember her execution again. The heroine did not understand why she was reborn at this particular moment in her life. The baby remembered that she was deliberately abandoned here so that she could become prey for wild animals. Despite her fear, she decided that she must survive, no matter what. This was her last chance, and she couldn't afford to miss it. The girl desperately fought off the wild wolves, and when one of them fell, she could not believe that she had killed him. Suddenly, a voice came from behind her, asking if she really thought she could kill wolves with a stick. Despite her fear, the girl did not run away. She knew she had to fight for her life. A man stood in front of her and said that courage is the quality of a true winner. The girl asked again and realized that the Duke of Baln, known for his power, was standing in front of her. She couldn't understand how he ended up here, because this didn't happen in his previous life. In her past life, she met the Duke much later, under completely different circumstances. Bowing, the girl thanked the Duke for saving her, feeling deep gratitude. She noticed that he had already helped her once and asked if she could ask for another favor. The Duke promised to think about it. The girl begged to be taken to the estate of Count Creed. The baby assured the Duke that she would not remain in debt for his help and would always be grateful. She needed this help because she felt completely defenseless. Duke Baln was a magician, and she was very attracted to his power, despite the rumors about him. It was said that the Duke of Baln could not grow old and achieved this with the help of black magic. The basis of black magic was human sacrifice, and this was a terrible secret. The girl didn't even know whether to believe these rumors. After a pause, the Duke addressed her. He asked what the Count's daughter was doing in the middle of the forest at such an hour and in such a state. The man also asked if she really wanted to return to the house from where she was sent to her death. He understood her situation, but it was much more complicated than he could have imagined. The girl was afraid to return there, but if she doesn't return, then what will happen to her? She explained that he had misunderstood. She doesn't want to run away from home again. She needs to stop running and hiding, otherwise she will never solve her problems. The Duke did not want to interfere in other people's family quarrels and preferred to stay away. In the end, the Duke said that he would help her, and the girl felt great joy. However, he added that he would help her only on one condition, demanding something from her in return, which she did not expect at all. The little girl asked what this condition was, feeling uneasy. She had to keep their meeting a secret. The girl swore that it would be so. In that case, the Duke said they were leaving and created a teleportation portal. The little girl knew that teleportation magic was a very high level of skill. The Duke ordered her to hold onto his hand, since the transition could be dangerous. When she touched his hand, he noticed an unusual feeling that was difficult to explain. The girl did not understand at all what had happened, but the gentleman turned away and said that it was nothing. They went into the portal. The girl was shocked because she had never experienced this before. Just a split second, and the girl is already in a different place. The magic is so wonderful, it cannot be conveyed until you feel it. The little girl told the gentleman that this was just a miracle. But he didn't react to her at all. The girl began to believe that she was annoying him. She really didn't understand anything, after which she thanked the gentleman for bringing her home. The little girl added that she knows these places, so she can get further on her own. The Duke, without answering, created another portal. Then he said that this was the path for her. The girl need not be afraid, because the magical fire does not burn. The girl waved her hand to the Duke and thanked him, promising that someday she would repay him with kindness. The Duke felt something was wrong, but decided to leave, relying on his premonition. The estate was so quiet. No one seemed to notice that the girl was missing. She knew she had to hurry to her room so as not to arouse suspicion. On her 29th birthday, she saw her true face in the mirror for the first time. This had never happened before in the family of Count Creed. They couldn't prove it. The main character was the first gifted one in the family, and they couldn't leave it like that. The order to execute Alicia's death sentence was issued by the Count himself. Baby girl shouldn't let that happen this time. She sat down on the floor and suddenly heard a voice. It was a maid who asked who was there, and when she did, she noticed that it was my lady. Alicia told Cecile to be quiet because she might wake everyone up. The maid, in turn, did not understand why my lady was here when the girl did not answer anything. Cecile began to believe that something had happened, but the little girl denied it. And at the same time, she asked the maid to call Larry because she had something to say. She decided she didn't need to keep it to herself anymore. This is her way of survival. She didn't realize how many times already, because memories come so randomly and illogically. But Alicia knows one thing for certain. The more she resists, the more painful her death will be. Alicia doesn't ask for much. She first met her father when she was 22 years old. She constantly recalled how Count Creed was asked if he had any objection to his daughter's death sentence, and every time he answered negatively. So dispassionately and detachedly, he agreed with her verdict. On that ill-fated day, she turned 22, and her father did not know about it. He didn't care about her life. Even when Alicia was killed, he continued to live as if nothing had happened. Alicia was neither offended nor surprised. Rather, she felt pity to those who died because of her. Come to think of it, she didn't do anything. One of the most influential aristocrats in the Empire, Count Creed. Honor and wealth were his surroundings. If Alicia's lineage could be proven, she would have inherited the temple. But no such evidence existed. From the point of view of the law, she was just a homeless girl. Also, Elizabeth's mother, whom her father loved more than life itself, died in childbirth. It seems to Elizabeth that her father's cold attitude towards her, and the fact that she has not known happiness all her life. The reason for this is obvious. Elizabeth asked where she was. A certain man informed Elizabeth Creed that this was her 29th rebirth. The girl didn't quite understand who he was, so she asked again. She doesn't remember anything, so he will have to explain everything to her again. He's Lake, and Lake represents the pantheon of gods. And he is the one who helps Elizabeth to be reborn. Lake thought everything was strange, because he knows a lot about her, but everything goes wrong. 14 years, 3 years, 15 years, longest, 22 years. Each time she appeared tearful and frightened, and in tears begged Lake to save her life. That's enough. Lake decided he wouldn't let that happen again. As Godlake said, Elizabeth should become happy, and then the rebirth will finally be completed. But this is already the 29th time, and she still hasn't managed to achieve anything. Elizabeth decided that this time things would probably be different. Thanks to Lake, Elizabeth has memories. From now on, she will begin to train her strength. This time, Elizabeth will definitely be able to protect the people she cares about. The lady said that she returned home, safe and sound, half-sister of the Emperor, and current wife of Count Creed, Sepran Grace Rotten. The woman was very angry because her servant, even with a 10-year-old girl, was not able to cope. The servant asked Milady to give her another chance. Grace asked if the previous chances weren't enough for her. She should have killed Alicia Creed. But once again, she is letting the lady down. The woman apologized and said that the servants in the outbuilding did not leave for a second, so it was difficult for her to get her out. The mistress threw the maid aside, and she again threw herself at her feet to ask for a chance. Grace thought it would be easier to remove her from the outbuilding. She pisses Grace off just as much as her mother. When Grace finally gets rid of her, she and her daughter Jezebel will be the sole heirs to the fortune. Grace said that she would deal with her so the servant could go and wait for her next order. Grace decided that she had better resort to a safer strategy. It's very difficult for Elizabeth. Previously, she tried to mend her relationship with her father. Since she was unable to see him, Elizabeth began to write letters to him. Of course, the girl did not receive any answers. But this was her only way to convey to him, so she continued to write to him. She wrote that she would like to drink tea with him and asked how his day was going. It was so banal that Lisa, you yourself understood that this would not melt her father's heart. She constantly thought about writing to her so that he would turn his attention to her life at least for a second. You must be consistent and honest, even if it seems nonsense to him. Elizabeth thought she should try, because there is no point in pretending that everything is fine. Larry knocked on the door. Elizabeth was glad to see her. Grace came in with her and noticed that Elizabeth was enjoying a wonderful morning. Grace asked if she could come in for a minute. Elizabeth let her into the room, after which the girl asked what her stepmother wanted. Grace noticed that she was haunted by curiosity. Grace asked if she would say that nothing happened to her. Elizabeth tried not to tremble. Grace noticed that since her presence was annoying the baby, she would go. And the stepmother also noticed that Elizabeth began to walk more often at dawn. This is dangerous, so she better stop it. Grace always takes care of her like a mother. So for the time being, she allocates a few more words to protect her peace. Elizabeth herself understood that this was a definite threat. This meant that after my execution, she would have to live within the 4 walls of the outbuilding. Little Elizabeth decided that she would ruin all the plans of her stepmother, Grace. Larry came to the baby and asked if her stepmother was offended. Elizabeth said everything was fine. Then she asked if she would help her clean up her desk. Larry, of course, agreed. Elizabeth asked Larry if she remembered telling her about her father. She asked the maid to tell her more and in more detail. Alicia said that everything is important to her. What a small detail I am. Larry shouldn't be shy. The maid noticed that only recently she had not even wanted to hear about the Count. Larry reported that she knew little about what was going on in the outhouse, but she knows that the Count is very interested in goals. Elizabeth asked if it was true. He reads every letter to his daughter. That's what the maid who used to work there said. So Lady has no reason to be sad. Besides, the Count is returning home soon, and she can give him all of Elizabeth's letters and gifts. This is what I wanted to do for the girl, but she is too afraid to meet him. Elizabeth decided that she definitely needed to write a letter to her father. A few days later, the head of the Creed family, Dick Creed, returned home. Grace greeted her dear husband. She was glad that he returned unharmed, and she noticed that their daughter Jezebel was worried about him. This is the youngest daughter of Count Creed. Jezebel greeted her father and said she was glad to see him, and that he's okay. He turned around and started to walk away, Grace running after him. Jezebel was very angry because she did not understand why her mother was so ingratiating herself with him. It's just disgusting. But nevertheless, her situation is as deplorable as you are for the girl. Grace ran after Dick and used how his expedition went and whether something had happened. She told her husband that she wrote to him. Dick turned to her and asked if she would continue to bother him like this. Grace began to apologize to him. The gentleman was greeted by the butler. Burns, butler of the Creed's county. He said that he took care of the affairs of the estate while the gentleman was away. Dick grabbed the documents in her hand, looked, and without answering anything began to leave. Burns didn't understand what was going on at all. Dick asked about the letters. The butler did not understand at all what letters were being discussed. Suddenly he remembered that he had forgotten about Lady Alicia's letters. He said that he would go and find out if there were letters. Larry told the lady that the garden she tends is green all year round. Elizabeth believed it was because she gave him all her love. The baby has never received love, but she is quite capable of giving it. Suddenly Elizabeth looked into the forest. Larry asked what was there, so the little girl said it was a bird. After which, Elizabeth said that she was thirsty, so she asked Larry to bring her some juice and cookies. Larry agreed and asked the lady to wait for her here. When Larry left, she said that he could go out. This is the Duke. Elizabeth asked the Duke of Balnay why he came. He didn't understand at all why there was such secrecy, because it was not necessary to send the maid. He said that he could be up to no good, so she acted unwisely. Elizabeth thought that if he were a bad person, he would not have come to her in the middle of the day. The girl said that most likely he came because she promised to repay him with kindness for saving him. Then she is not ready yet. The Duke reported that this was not the case. He knelt in front of her and asked for her hand. The Duke noticed that this time there was no such feeling. He stood up and turned away. The gentleman noticed that he came to check if the lady was okay. And by the way, again, she shouldn't tell anyone that he came. Elizabeth tried to stop the Duke. She didn't really believe that he only came because he was worried about her. Suddenly, she heard the butler's voice. The girls wanted to pretend that she didn't hear anything, but he came closer and wished her good morning. The man noticed that he had not seen her for a long time, probably because she herself rarely leaves the estate. He asked how Lady Elizabeth was doing. Burns cared for her very much in her past life. Of course, this is his responsibility, but that really wasn't the point. Elizabeth asked Burns to tell her honestly whether he had thought about what happened at the estate. The little girl hoped that he would learn to listen. Previously, the butler had not noticed that people were so emaciated. She looks even worse than Lady Jezebel. Burns must no longer make excuses for his responsibilities. Burns knelt down and apologized to the lady for his misstep. He will never leave her alone again. Barnes promised that he would not let the lady down. The little girl noticed that they were saying about him that he was talented and smart. That's why her father trusts him so much. Then Elizabeth trusts too. Burns reiterated that he would not let his lady down. He is the Creed's butler and will always serve each of the family members. Elizabeth still asked what happened at the estate. Nothing special. Elizabeth hopes her relationship with her father will improve. She noticed Larry, and she didn't understand at all what she was doing here. Larry said that she saw my lady and was so touched by what she said. The lady said that she wanted to send a letter and a gift to her father. Larry said not to worry because she would give it to Butler Burns. Grace noticed that they had not sat together like this for a long time, and the tea has an exquisite aroma. When Grace chose him, she thought about her husband, and she hopes that in the future they will be able to spend more time together. Then I asked my husband what he thought. Dick said frankly that it had a scent, but for him, it was disgusting. Everything around her is disgusting, and he asked again if she wanted to spend more time with him. Grace sadly asked why he hated her so much. After all, she is his wife after all. She didn't understand why at all, and Dick said that she understood better than him. But then he reported what she said. The Emperor, not her. He knows everything better than anyone. Meeting Dick and Grace, you lost your wife, Miel. That was 2 months ago. Moreover, when his daughter was born, he realized that he had lost his chance for a better future. Dick kissed His Majesty hello. The Emperor noticed that they had no need for such officialdom. Dick asked why the gentleman called him. The Emperor sighed. He said that he wanted to benefit the Count by marrying his sister. Dick shouted that he had just lost his wife, Miel. This is the will of the gods. The Emperor asked if he should know what power would be in the hands of the one who marries the Emperor's daughter. Dick believed that these were base passions. The Emperor continued to ask him and say that all hope was in him. He will finally have a blue blood heir, not what he has now. Dick asks the Emperor if he thinks that he will so easily accept this will of the gods. Words from the servants of the temple, which is known to whom it belongs, the will of the gods. It seemed to him that even the Emperor did not believe in this. He said that Dick needed the power that the temple, which belonged to the Emperor, gave. Dick asked if this was an order. The Emperor said that they were friends with him, so this was his first and last request. Nevertheless, the Count said that he would fulfill his request. He didn't even have time to mourn his dead wife. I had to have a wedding right away. Everything was organized in a short time, and despite this, the celebration was pompous and expensive. He was forced to love an unknown woman. But for him, love ceased to exist as a feeling. Since then, Dick began to avoid meeting his family, and he volunteered to work as a diplomat for the Empire. When he read the letter from this girl, who felt a chilling aroma, he was like Miel's spirits. He felt completely uneasy. The Duke and the Emperor were talking. The Duke believed that the Emperor already knew what was happening in the south. The gentleman said that in 3 years he will finish what he started and return. The Emperor asked again in shock. In fact, the Emperor summoned the Duke because he was informed that the Prince of Smilona and the Count of Kalos had entered into an agreement. The Duke of Baln did not quite understand what was bothering him so much. After all, the Seprin family remains loyal to the power of Eowyn. The Emperor didn't know how he could know, because there might still be those who were up to no good, and he could only be sure of Balna and Dick. Something bad is happening. The gentleman is absolutely sure of this. Balna doesn't think it can start in 3 years. The Emperor noticed that his words were criminal. But maybe in 3 years they will cope. The Emperor announced that the Duke of Balna should marry the one he chose. The Duke asked if this was the Emperor's hobby, to arrange brothers between people who did not like each other. The gentleman justified himself by saying that the gods do not approve of bachelor life. He always tries to fill the void, but the Emperor must know that Baln, is going to fill this void through marriage. Baln has many secrets in his heart that he cannot reveal. The Emperor tried to stop the Duke. In general, after 3 years, the Duke of Baln will conquer the lands of the barbarians and transfer them to the possession of His Majesty. The Emperor must have patience. That's right, it's not needed now. But later, maybe. Elizabeth told Cecile that she was going to study fencing. The maid was simply shocked and asked again what her mistress was saying. She couldn't believe it was true. The maid thought it was a joke. Well, the little girl said with a smile that this was serious. She must learn to defend herself. Cecile told the lady that she was only 10 years old. That's why Elizabeth needs something to protect them. But Grace mustn't find out about this. A place where you can practice fencing in secret. The estate of Duke Giordano is most suitable for this. The Giordano clan not only led a body famous for its warrior swordsmen, but also had its own intelligence network. Entrance to the Order's headquarters is prohibited for outsiders. They hire a small number of workers to avoid information leakage. It was the ideal headquarters for a secret order. That's what they told Elizabeth. And the girl wondered if they would teach her fencing there. Cecile understood that no matter how she stopped the mistress, Elizabeth still won't listen. The maid said that she would help, but she must promise the mistress that she would not exhaust herself physically. If something happens, she must definitely inform her maid. Elizabeth agreed. But still, Cecile was worried about her mistress, and once again asked if she could give up this idea. Wow, the Duke of Balna suddenly announced that he doesn't like it when someone bothers him. Larry told the maids that her mistress was worried about the kidnapping attempt, so she ordered them to double their vigilance. There are not enough servants in this wing, but they still have to take care of it. Cecile said not to worry about it. Elizabeth understood that because of her, it was not easy for all of them. The maid slept under the door. Now the baby cannot protect herself. Even if it's a little, she needs to practice. The broom flew out of her hands and created a roar. The maids immediately asked what happened. Elizabeth said everything was fine. Because of family politics, she will not be able to learn magic. In that case, she should at least learn fencing. Elizabeth took the broom into her hand once more and decided that she couldn't give up after I tried. Every cloud has a silver lining. Tomorrow Elizabeth will definitely go to the estate of Duke Giordano. She mustn't lose heart. The reason for refusing the invitation is that she is unwell. The butler confirmed this. But if she got into a carriage and went somewhere, that means she lied about her illness. Burns asked if he could express his opinion. The Count allowed him. The butler was wondering why his master wanted to meet Miss Alicia so much. It seems to him that the gentleman himself has not yet found the reason for this desire. Moreover, until now he has not bothered her. It is natural that his daughter avoids him. Dick asked if he wanted to say it was his fault. The butler apologized in advance if he allowed himself too much. Still, he thought it would be better to slow down and give her some time. Dick began to realize that this was his wine. It's all his fault before Miel. The man came to Grace. The woman asked if he figured it out. The servant noted that most likely it would not be easy for her to return from there alive. Elizabeth was grabbed by the neck. She was jumping and asking to be saved because she didn't want this. Someone began to take the baby and stroke her with such a warm hand. Elizabeth wondered who it was. After which, Elizabeth woke up abruptly, realizing that it was just a dream. My heart was pounding, and the memories of what had happened seemed so real and frightening. She sat in the carriage, watching the flickering lights as she headed towards the Duke's estate, where an unknown fate awaited her. She noticed that the speed was too high, so she had to ask to go slower. When she knocked on the doors, they broke down and the girl flew out of the carriage. She didn't understand what was happening, and when she saw that she was hanging on a cliff, she immediately let go of her hand. The main character couldn't believe that this was happening to her again. The carriage suddenly overturned. Elizabeth was only now beginning to think about where she was. Of Baln entered the room. She didn't answer. The gentleman assumed that she was having nightmares. The girl was surprised when she saw him. Balna said that she had nothing to worry about or be afraid of, because here is the territory of the Duchy of Giordano, and the safest place is the Duke's home. At a minimum, no one will overturn the carriage and try to kill it under the guise of an accident. Elizabeth knew it was Grace's doing. The Duke noticed that she was always putting herself in danger. If he had not found her in time, Elizabeth would have died alone, left at the mercy of a harsh fate and cruel circumstances. Elizabeth started to say something to the Duke, but he told her to eat it first because she had been sleeping for 24 hours. Baln said that half asleep she repeated that there must be bacon in the soup. "This soup has it." Elizabeth was shocked that she would say such a thing. The girl immediately became embarrassed. The Duke confirmed this. Elizabeth became even more ashamed because she found herself in the Duke's house and talked in her sleep about bacon in the soup. When Elizabeth finishes her meal, she can go down to the first floor, and the Duke will give her fencing lessons. Elizabeth had absolutely no idea how he found out about this. Baln said he was just guessing, and they will see each other later. This soup is really delicious. Therefore, Elizabeth believed that they cooked differently in the duchy. At the same time, in the majestic estate of Duke Creed, something important was happening that changed the fate of all the inhabitants. Larry was worried because there was no news from the lady. She wondered if Elizabeth had arrived safely. Suddenly, Cecilia ran up to her. Larry didn't quite understand what had happened. Cecilia screamed in panic that the Count was furious. He was tearing up and rushing, and they were in big trouble, threatening the entire estate. Lecce is the guard of the Duke of Balne. He came to the master and said that he had something to tell him. A few days ago, Lady Creed, who arrived at the estate, said that she needed a teacher. So he asks permission if he can teach her personally, because he heard that no one wants to do it. Baln asked if he had any special reason. Lecce noticed that the gentleman did not need a guard, and here he had a chance to earn his salary. In addition, he had many brothers, and he is not bad with small children. Baln noticed that he was the only one who could call her a little child. He allowed him, but he couldn't give in. Lecce volunteered to teach her, but I didn't really expect anything. 30 laps. Elizabeth ran through them. The little girl is trying her best. Lecce asked if it was hard for the lady. She needed training for self-defense. He assumed that she would do it half-heartedly, but he soon realized that she was giving it her all, proving her determination. He told Miss Elizabeth to run 10 more laps. She's already completely off her feet, but the desire to survive was stronger, so she continued to run. She can't give up everything. The servants told Elizabeth that if she did not run properly, they would help her fall. Elizabeth believed that they were all mocking her. Suddenly, a maid approached him. She began to tell Lecce that her mistress was here, and she heard that Alice was again on the training field. Cecile was simply shocked when she saw the mistress. She started hugging her and saying that she was very sweaty. Cecile heard that I am a lady was wounded, so she thought that it was wrong to run around like that. Elizabeth said that she was cured at the Duke's estate and is already healthy. She wondered how the maid ended up here. What happened is that the Count is looking for her. Cecile said that he had already heard that his daughter was sick and was about to call a doctor. When he learned that Elizabeth was at the Duke's estate, he gathered the knights to personally visit her. Elizabeth noticed that something was wrong. She didn't quite understand the reason why he wanted to see her so much. Elizabeth told the maid that she needed to talk to her father, otherwise she should wait for her in the carriage. The maid noticed that in someone else's house, contrary to expectations, Elizabeth looked happier. If Elizabeth had known that this would happen, she would have asked where he was now. Baln said that she was in the other direction. Elizabeth reported that she was just on her way to see him, and he came in very handy. The Duke noticed that she was not even surprised. Baln said that he knew that the lady was returning to the Count's house. Elizabeth believed that something had happened at home, so she needed to check. She really hoped that the gentleman would not tell her not to come again. Balin told her to go back because there was no need to worry about others, after which the lady asked what it was in his hands. "This is a magical medallion for moving in space. When she comes back, you should take the medallion and think about this place, and then she will immediately be here." Elizabeth was very grateful to the Duke. The man noticed that the maid seemed trustworthy to him, but just in case, Elizabeth had better go straight to the gate. She need not worry because they will send her to the estate. Elizabeth was very grateful that the Duke took such good care of her. She doesn't even know how she can thank him. Baln asked if she could promise him something in that case. Elizabeth greatly underestimated the ladder exercise. 2 days ago, she was at the Duke's. Baln said that this was a mere trifle, but she must keep her promise. She asked what he was talking about. The Duke said that she should go up and down the stairs for 2 hours a day. When it gets really hard, she can take a break. But she must definitely do this exercise for 2 hours. This is the most important task for her now. It is for Elizabeth to strengthen her stamina. After returning home, Elizabeth was unable to meet her father as he left for the palace in a hurry. She doesn't know when he will return and look for her, so she decided to wait for him at home. The stairs are more difficult than Elizabeth thought. The girl fell to the floor because she could no longer walk up the stairs. Cecile approached her and noticed that her mistress was doing a great job, and she hopes that the lady will not lose weight from these exercises, because Elizabeth is so fragile. The lady said that this would not happen, and she, on the contrary, will build muscle and become bigger. Cecilia dreamed that her mistress would become like other ladies. Suddenly, the maid suggested that the mistress have a picnic. Elizabeth asked again. Cecilia noticed that the weather was nice today, and she thought it would be great for eating outside. Before Elizabeth returned, she had only gone on picnics with Larry and Cecile a few times. Elizabeth agreed to go on a picnic, and she said that she would help the maid prepare the food, because she just wanted to learn how to sing pecan pie. This interested the maid. Elizabeth heard that her father doesn't really eat sweets, but he really likes pecan pie. True, she doesn't know when she'll be able to treat him. Maid Gavrila, please slow down because she might fall. The main character noticed that today the weather is really good. If it weren't for Cecile, Elizabeth would still be sitting at home. She called Larry. The maid informed the lady that she needed to go away on some business. Then she asked if she could wait for her a little, and promised to send Cecile. Elizabeth agrees. No wonder Larry is so worried about Elizabeth. It's not so easy to have a picnic. Prepare all snacks. After which Elizabeth thought about how she could give her father the pecan pie. Elizabeth realizes that she must make an effort to restore her relationship with him. But because Grace banished her to the estate's wing, Elizabeth and her services lost all power. The entrance to the main corridor is strictly controlled by everyone except the main maid Larry, and it is forbidden to go there. Elizabeth would like to give him this special gift in person, but I thought that Grace was probably up to something after that incident with the carriage. So maybe she needs to pass it on another time. Someone was standing behind the tree. Suddenly this man came out and asked what all this antics were about. Elizabeth had absolutely no idea where her father was coming from. He asked again if she had heard him. Cut cannot utter a word out of fear. Dick ordered her to stop, because he didn't ask for an apology. And at the same time, I asked if he could sit next to me. The butler told the owner that only 3 or 4 hours had passed since his return, and he would advise him to rest. But the Count ordered him to stop talking. Dick ordered him to mind his own business, and he would sort it out himself. The butler noticed that the Count was walking towards the outbuilding. He hoped nothing would happen. Lately, the gentleman has been dreaming often. Not nightmares, not even pleasant ones. But still, perhaps this longing. Why does Miel dream? These dreams poison him. Miel tells her husband in the dream to look around. After Miel's death, Dick never saw her in his dreams. He doesn't understand at all why he needs to look around. It seemed to the Duke that he had come to the very place. It was here that Elizabeth's wing was located. Present tense again. Elizabeth was very scared. But she can no longer avoid him. Do it the way it was before. The Count asked why she was looking at him like that. She called him Daddy. After which the Count asked again what she said. Elizabeth immediately covered her mouth and realized that it looked like she shouldn't have called him that. The girl said that if he hasn't had dinner yet, he can eat. She cooked with Cecilia. Elizabeth doesn't know whether he will like it or not. The girl understood that most likely he would not accept. It was with great difficulty that the lady mustered up her courage, and the Count actually took a sandwich from her. Elizabeth was very surprised that he took the sandwich and even began to eat it. Count Creed noted that he thought the baby was afraid of him. Elizabeth said she was afraid, to which Dick noticed that this was not visible from her face. The girl said that she was pretending not to be scared. It's unpleasant for him to look at her. If Elizabeth trembles like a leaf, then she is afraid that her father will want to kill her. The Count didn't quite understand what she was talking about. Suddenly, Larry started running there. She greeted the Count and began to say that it was all her fault. And it was she who insisted on having lunch in the garden. The Count noticed that this garden still belongs to the outbuilding, so she is not to blame for anything. Dick was grateful for the sandwich and began to walk away. Larry asked the lady if she was okay. Elizabeth didn't quite understand what had just happened. She told the maid that she was fine. It's such a relief. Perhaps the father is starting to change too. Larry's reaction was understandable. In the Creed family, children without marks were considered useless ballast. Usually, the heads of families did not like them. This hostility gradually grew into hatred, and there were those who took the lives of their offspring with their own hands. Therefore, even an everyday conversation between father and daughter was something of a miracle. Elizabeth no longer wants to perceive this attitude as some kind of family tradition. This time Elizabeth will get out of this vicious circle. The butler asked the gentleman if he would have more. Dick forced himself to eat dinner, but he couldn't eat another bite. He ordered the butler to make repairs to the outbuilding as quickly as possible, because the building is too dilapidated. The gentleman noted that tomorrow he would have lunch with Elizabeth. Dick heard screams from Grace's room. She shouted at the maid to bring her something. The maid told Mrs. Grace that her mistress told her to give it to the Count. Grace asked if she had to kill her in order for you to give it to her. After which the Count entered the room, and Grace immediately calmed down. Grace started asking when he came here, and saying that if she had known he was around, she wouldn't have made a fuss. Dick ordered the maid to take it to his office. The maid left. Grace started screaming and asking him if he was going to try it. After all, he doesn't know what's inside. Dick ordered her to stop because he didn't want to embarrass himself in front of the servants. If she wants to test his patience, she can try to stop him there. She tried to say something else, but the Count left and ordered the maid to go with him. As far as the maid knows, no one can enter the Count's office. Dick asked what the maid's name was. She's Nancy. He believed she was Elizabeth's maid. The Count ordered from now on to bring to his office everything that the younger lady sends. Nancy will be responsible for this and should not delegate this task to anyone else. He will talk to the senior maid, and he also allows the maid not to respond to his wife's orders. The Count ordered Burns to escort the maid. The butler left with Nancy. This is pecan pie, similar in taste to what Miel made. Dick never acted like a father, and he fully deserves her reproach. But this is a child. She wrote to him that she loves to eat meat and vegetables. She eats everything in a bag. She also wrote that she loves meat a little more. She is also good at embroidery. Elizabeth sent him a handkerchief and hoped that he would find it useful. Last time that bacon soup. There was so little bacon, Elizabeth thought it was just warm milk. She also wrote that there are always not enough maids because many quit. Previously, these letters contained formal greetings, so the Count did not even read them. It feels like she has become different. Maybe it has something to do with the dream where Miel appeared. Something is changing, but the Count doesn't know what exactly. If Miel had been nearby, she would have answered him. Grace was simply furious and did not understand how through some maid. Besides, this is Elizabeth's maid. The woman does not understand at all how he can humiliate her like that. Grace decided it wouldn't do. But I still decided that nothing would change from these thoughts. Grace is about to ask her husband for a favor she really needs. In the morning, the butler appeared at Elizabeth's and politely inquired how she slept. The girl asked him with interest that he had been busy since the morning. The butler apologized and said that the Count wished to dine with her. After she gave him the pie, there was no word from him. Elizabeth hopes that nothing happened. The girl turned to Burns and said that first she would like to say something. She has to say it to believe him. In the past, Burns had never reached out to help the girl Elizabeth. However, Elizabeth herself did not ask him to help her. Burns wondered why the lady was dressed like that. Elizabeth just wanted to talk about it. This time she decided to take the first step, and she said that she was going to study fencing. Elizabeth decided to trust the butler. After hearing the words, the man was very surprised, and Elizabeth added that she had already started and asked him not to tell his father about it. Elizabeth said that the butler himself understood what her situation was, and she hopes that he understands why she wants to learn fencing. Elizabeth chose the Giordano estate because of its privacy and historical significance, making it a particularly suitable location for her purposes. The mistress said that she herself would inform her father about this, so she asks him to keep it a secret for now. Burns promised to do as my lady asked. He is good at keeping secrets. The girl is very grateful to him, after which the butler decided to ask what about lunch. Larry hoped Milady would be okay. She accompanied the mistress. Elizabeth said about the maid that it was nothing, because they would just have lunch together. The girl was also worried, but did not want to show it to Larry. The maid was afraid that the lady would have indigestion. They noticed that Sprout had appeared there. Elizabeth didn't even know how he got through that gap. Larry said it was the lady who influenced him, because Elizabeth is capable of nurturing shoots even in winter. At one time, Separan was considered a dead land. The winters there were long and fierce. Therefore, before the onset of winter, the aristocrats hired magicians to cast a preservation spell on the garden. But Elizabeth's plants do not die even without such magic, unless they are physically destroyed. This is probably a blessing. Plants helping animals, even without a mark they are given a blessing. Larry told Miss that someone was approaching them. The man greeted Miss Elizabeth. It was Camille accompanying the Knight of Daylock. He introduced himself and said that he had come for her. Elizabeth told the maid that she would come soon. Larry asked the lady to be careful. If Elizabeth knew, I would have to train so much in the morning. The muscles in my legs hurt a lot. Camille asked if Elizabeth's legs hurt, to which the girl said that everything was fine. Camille knelt down and apologized, after which he took the lady in his arms. Elizabeth asked to be released. Camille noted that, to be honest, he saw her from afar several times. And Mrs. Larry wore it like that, too. Elizabeth couldn't remember when it was. Still, Camille was always very affectionate. He had wanted to help his lady with something before. Camille also said that the lady can address him on a first-name basis. Elizabeth asked again, and the guy noticed that otherwise the Count would scold him. But the main character didn't think that he would get angry over such a trifle. Elizabeth nevertheless agreed. Camille was pleased to hear this, and he began to smile. The butler hurriedly reported that the gentleman had just returned. Camille greeted the Count. Elizabeth thought that he would be waiting inside. Dick ignored Camille, but then asked how long he was going to hold Elizabeth in his arms. Camille immediately apologized and put the lady down. Elizabeth noticed that he had a dissatisfied face. Therefore, the girl began to believe that she was unpleasant to him again. He turned to the girl, and when he closed the doors, he noticed that he still didn't know something. Elizabeth was completely confused and did not know what to say in response. Suddenly, she turned around and thanked her father for inviting her to dinner. Father said to go inside. The butler noticed that the lady had nothing to worry about because her father was not angry with her. When Elizabeth tried to ask something, the butler said that she herself would understand everything when she talked to him. Burns told the lady not to be afraid and wished her a bon appetit. If she needs something, she can call him, because he will be waiting outside. Elizabeth didn't want Burns to leave her here alone, and he sat down himself, inviting his daughter to take a seat next to him at the table. Dick noticed that Elizabeth was very uncomfortable. He asked if she was uncomfortable. Elizabeth tried to say something. The Count noticed that he asked to bring the smallest devices, and this was very strange. The girl didn't even know whether it was a dream or not, because she was not used to such an attitude from her father. She again remembered how she was sentenced to death for killing the princess and attempting to harm the emperor. And again she remembered how indifferent her father was to her at that moment. The main character did not understand at all why father and daughter should meet for the first time in such a place. It is completely incomprehensible why he never turned back to where his daughter stood. When people lost their lives because of her, Eliza felt deep fear and regret. And when she sobbed desperately, her father did not even look at her, as if her grief did not touch him. Elizabeth decided that she should not cry. To be honest, she wanted to make her presentations to him. Then, when they meet, she wondered if he later thought his daughter had been falsely accused. But maybe he didn't care about his daughter because of the mark. She wanted so badly to tell him that she hated him. The father reported that he liked the pecan pie. I didn't notice that she had talent. Elizabeth did not understand at all what was next and why this was so. The girl started crying. She cried and asked why only now. Dick was in shock and did not understand what happened to her. On the contrary, it was strange that she did not show resentment. But Dick doesn't understand at all what he should do in such a situation. Perhaps say she is too noisy or try to shake her to bring her to her senses. The Count realized that it seemed that he was not saying the main thing. He sat down next to her and apologized to Elizabeth. Dick asked if his daughter had calmed down. The Count asked his daughter not to rub her eyes with her hands and gave her a handkerchief. Elizabeth noticed that this was the handkerchief she had sewn for him. She burst into tears even more and asked why he still had it. Dick asked why she did this, because she was the one who gave him this opportunity. Elizabeth thought he had thrown it away. After all, she didn't inherit much from her family and is completely useless. The Count knows why she expresses her thoughts in this way and is fully aware of the reasons for her words. Lady Elizabeth looks very fragile compared to her peers, but the Count did not know. But he also believed so, despite the fact that he did not see her. In addition, he asked the butler whether he really believed that the gentleman wanted to know about this. Burns responded negatively and apologized for the situation. Until this moment, the Count completely ignored everything connected with his child. If it weren't for Miel's dream, nothing would have changed, and life would have continued to flow as usual, without sudden changes. The Creed family was known for their strict upbringing to create the perfect family. They spoiled children who carried family characteristics within them. They also got rid of children who did not inherit them. They suppressed their emotions, did everything in the name of family prosperity, even if it meant hurting everyone around her, including her own child. Her resolve never wavered. But family goals cannot serve as an excuse for such behavior, because they should not outweigh personal principles and feelings. The Count admitted that he never threw away what Elizabeth gave him and never hated her. Dick knew that he was cold and partial to the baby, aware of his severity and lack of warmth in his relationship with her, and he cannot force her to change her attitude towards him in an instant. Dick will not ask Elizabeth to forgive him for abandoning her for these long 10 years. But the Count promises that he will definitely change. Elizabeth asked why he suddenly decided so. Dick himself could not explain exactly why he suddenly began to care, which caused him even more confusion. But from the moment Elizabeth wrote this letter, he became interested in how she lived. Elizabeth was surprised that her father even read the letter. She couldn't believe that everything she heard was true. Perhaps this is just a dream, because Dick cannot change everything in one morning, despite his decisive actions. But he suggests that she at least start with lunch. If this is a dream, Elizabeth would like to stay in it forever. At dinner, the Count bombarded her with endless questions. She was so full. Elizabeth felt like she was about to have an upset stomach. She was so worried about what was happening. The little girl told her father that there were a lot of questions. Dick was glad that she finally called him that. Elizabeth hoped he wouldn't say he didn't hear. The Count said not to worry, because he would not force you to repeat it. And he suggested that we continue to eat. Elizabeth had never seen such an expression on his face. It would be great if it was always like this. Dick said that if she didn't mind, he would like to always eat with her. Elizabeth realized that this was a chance for her, so she said that she did not mind. But Elizabeth has a certain request to her father. She would like to eat with her father from now on. But she simply draws his attention to the menu of the courtiers who live with her in the outbuilding. The Count noted that it sounded as if what she was eating here was different from what she was eating in the outhouse. Now Elizabeth understood that he really didn't know anything. Dick told his daughter that he was not reproaching her. Elizabeth said that he simply did not know, because he was not at all interested. He doesn't know at all how she lived and dared to say that he would change. Dick noticed that it seemed that in order for him to change, he would need her help. Elizabeth said she would help. The Count thought that it was not just about food. Dick needs to find out everything. Larry told the lady that it was time to go to bed. Elizabeth said that another bookcase was due to arrive tomorrow, so Larry should try to make room. Larry asked again. Elizabeth said that she would bring books from the library, and she could buy the missing ones. Larry upsetly told the lady that no one could enter the Creed library without the Count's permission. Without a suite, she said that he gave her permission and said that she could take books there whenever she wanted. Larry never thought that he would allow Elizabeth to visit the library. Elizabeth told the maid that it was time for her to go to bed. Larry said goodbye and wished her good night. The maid couldn't believe it. Elizabeth tossed and turned but could not sleep. The girl didn't even know whether to be happy or frightened by the changes that had occurred in her father. After all, Elizabeth does not understand why he suddenly decided to change, leaving her perplexed and with many questions. She's actually scared. Before this, her life was full of fears. That's why she always ran away or hid. And as a result, it became easy to give up on myself. But Elizabeth is changing, and it seems to me that everything around her is also changing. She came back here again for exactly this, although she is not sure that she is doing everything right, and let her still be a little scared. Elizabeth wants to protect all the good things that are now happening to her. Elizabeth told her father that everything was very tasty today, too. Dick was glad to hear this. When they entered the library, Alice Beth was very happy, because there really are a lot of books here. The girl asked whether the children could borrow any book here. Dick confirmed this because he promised her. Elizabeth turned to him and asked what happened. The Count admitted that there was something he would like to give her. Nothing special. It's just a library key. Now it belongs to her, so she can take it. If Elizabeth hangs it around her neck, then he will definitely not get lost, always staying close and protecting her from dangers. The girl was very happy and said that he was very handsome and that she would never lose him. Elizabeth will definitely not lose this amulet if she hides under her clothes, reliably hiding it from prying eyes and hands. Suddenly, he noticed a magic medallion and tore it from the baby's neck. This item contains the magic of the Duke of Balney. The Count was perplexed and asked where she got it from. The Count will be able to find out just by studying it. Therefore, he hopes that his daughter will not lie. Elizabeth didn't know that he could so easily understand that it was a magical thing. She was very angry with herself for not thinking about it. Elizabeth really wanted to go to the estate today for a lesson. She wondered if he would ban her if he found out why she was going there. Elizabeth apologized. Dick realized that he was speaking too harshly to the child again. Apparently, this has become his habit. The gentleman apologized to Elizabeth and said that he did not mean to be so angry with her. He's just worried that this thing might be dangerous. Elizabeth asked if she had to tell her everything right now. Dick said that if he was sure that the thing was safe, he would not question it. The Count asked if she could show him closer. He said he wouldn't find out, but she won't be able to hide it from him forever, so Elizabeth is thinking about telling everything to her father. Dick realized that this was spatial magic. It belongs to Duke Balna Giordano, Count Creed, who uses divine power, as well as the Duke of Baln, who uses magic. Both were close in temperature. However, they almost never crossed paths. Perhaps the fact that the Duke was a very secretive person played a role, or that he had a very bad character. And although this thing still worries the Count, he gave it back anyway and said that it would not harm the baby. A child who had just taken his first step into the big world and chose the Duke of Baln. Therefore, the Count did not understand at all how he could not worry about this. Dick asked Elizabeth if she was afraid that he would be angry with her. He said that he would not ask her about the medallion, but he would like an answer to this question. Elizabeth just isn't sure yet. Dick himself understood that it was still difficult for her to trust him completely, but Elizabeth doesn't want her to keep secrets from him. She decided to tell. Elizabeth said that she began to learn fencing for self-defense on the estate, and although she cannot tell him the reason for this decision, she still promises that she will tell him later. In addition, Elizabeth has become much more resilient due to training. Although not much time has passed, Dick was very grateful, and he said that he would be glad if she continued to be honest with him. Elizabeth smiled and promised that it would be so. The next day, at dawn, Elizabeth was happy because today she would actually go to training. The main thing is not to forget anything. The girl noticed a letter on the table. In that letter, it was written that he thought that the girl had a reason why she chose the Duke of Baln, and she knows for sure that the training there will not be easy. But since this is her decision, she must go to the end. The Count will worry about her, so she must not get hurt and be careful. Elizabeth didn't know whether he was cold or caring. So far, she has not been able to understand this, but she will return soon. Elizabeth asked Boretsky whether she should start with 30 circles or push-ups. Rand didn't think she would come back. The girl asked if she would study with Sir Lecce today. Elizabeth decided to continue training, which is beyond the power of many adults. Rand told her to wait in the office on the second floor. Sir Lecce and the Duke will be up there soon. Elizabeth had absolutely no idea which office was on the second floor. She will have to check all the doors in a row. Elizabeth was completely lost because every door was the wrong one. There's only one left. But when she opened it, she was very surprised, and I didn't understand what it was. She saw in front of her a map of the Separan Empire. Moreover, this is a military map of the Empire. It should not fall into enemy hands because strategic objects and other important information are marked on it. Therefore, it is inaccessible to the ordinary person. Of course, this does not apply to Duke Balna, but she didn't understand at all how he could leave her in such a prominent place. Suddenly, the girl noticed the road to Jatron. These are wild lands located in the south. And they are on the border with Rydern. There are no laws, no norms, and from time to time these savages raid. In fact, this is a small Union state that is not shy about robbery and robbery. If Elizabeth remembers correctly, a war with them will soon begin. And although after 3 years the Empire will win, of Mölden was chosen as the course on the map. But the Calburn Forest in the east would be much better suited. The Duke came into the room and asked what she was looking at. Baln said that he simply asked what she was looking at here with such interest. It seems that the lady has already realized what it is. Elizabeth believed you were a map with a plan for attacking Jatron. Elizabeth was very apologetic, and Hertz was shocked because a 10-year-old girl was able to understand this in a few seconds. Baln said that it was nothing like that, because those who left it here without proper supervision are to blame. The Duke told the servants that he would think about how they should be punished, so they were free. Balna said it was somehow their fault that they left the map here, and he is not so naive as to let go of someone who found out all their plans. The Duke asked her to talk about the forest she was just mumbling about. He became interested. The Duke asked if she said that winter was coming, and when the swamp froze, it would be much easier to move around. Elizabeth confirmed this, adding that monsters live there, spitting poisonous gas. This problem can be addressed. Balnay was interested in how it could be solved. Elizabeth admitted that she herself had recently learned about this. The Creed family library contains a rare book about herbs. It says that if you mix several herbs, you can get an antidote. Elizabeth herself had only recently learned about this combination of herbs, and the book was in the far corner. Perhaps no one thought of such a method. Elizabeth hoped that he would not kill her now. Balney asked again, after which he began to laugh and ask how she could even think of such a thing, because he knows very well that the Creed family will never betray the Empire. And he continued to laugh. Well, he would have listened to the composition of the antidote. He thinks this could help them a lot. Elizabeth said that she would tell everything. Baln said that in return, he would personally teach her how to wield a sword. Now Elizabeth will have to repeat after the Duke. Elizabeth was confused. The girl asked the gentleman if he could first teach her how to hold a sword. Come on. All Elizabeth did was cut circles around the field. The Duke agreed. He told her how to bend her arm and asked her not to strain. Elizabeth's gaze should be directed towards the sword. The servants were in complete shock. When they looked at the gentleman, it's clear that the gentleman is trying, and the girl is really serious. They want to support her. The next day, Elizabeth also came to train with the Duke. She ran and ran again. The services supported the girl as best they could, and she was very grateful to them. So 10 days passed on the estate of Duke Giordano Baln, and she returned. The father said that they needed to talk. Elizabeth felt like she was in trouble. The Count noticed that his daughter got scared so easily. He asked her not to be afraid. Elizabeth, I was 10 days old, and he just wanted to invite her to rest for at least a day. Elizabeth believed that if you rested every time you wanted, it would no longer be training. Perhaps he would scold her if Elizabeth really said she wanted to leave. The Count was going to show Elizabeth the greenhouses. The girl was surprised and asked again. Dick said her mother loved spending time there. Elizabeth really wanted it. She really asked him to take her because she really wanted to go there. The Count was shocked because he never thought that she would like this idea so much. Dick knows that he realized it too late. Well, all this time he was thinking about what he could do for her. He was interested in what 10-year-old children like. I thought about giving her a dress or jewelry, but she is so active. The man said that something beautiful would be enough to start with. As Kamel advised, the Count personally chose the dress and jewelry that he gave her. She said that she wanted more books, so he allowed her the family library. He gave her the books that Elizabeth asked for. The Count even found a rare book that they did not have. He repaired the outbuilding and changed the cook. All orders that are not related to him, which were given to Elizabeth and her maids, were recalled. Because of this, he fought with his wife Grace. But no matter what she said, it still did not affect his decision. But despite all his efforts, he saw such a joyful face for the first time. Perhaps this is because this place is associated with her mother. Elizabeth told her dad that she has been so happy lately. She sees how he dresses, jewelry, and books. She is very grateful to him for all this. And they can even drink tea in the greenhouse. They had never drank tea together before. This will be the first time, so Risa says she's especially happy. Elizabeth didn't understand what was wrong. The Count knelt down and hugged his daughter. He said that everything was fine, but he himself thought about whether he had the right to hug her at all. Dick also wanted to say that he was very glad to have tea with his daughter, and he hopes they will do this more often in the future. If only I agreed. Everyone was shocked. Elizabeth, of course, trained every day, but no one understood how she became so resilient so quickly. It seems to them that this girl is not a person at all, but just a monster. The Duke approached him from behind and asked if he also wanted 30 laps. The man was very scared. Baln himself noticed that Elizabeth was really incredibly resilient. But perhaps because you are her family bears the gift of God. He ordered her to be brought to his office when Elizabeth finished training. Baln added that if anyone else behaves inappropriately with Lady Creed, then he allows Lecce to punish them as he pleases. Elizabeth said, which herb is the best at neutralizing poison, and which one has an effect that is enhanced significantly if it is dried. The Duke was very grateful for the information. Everything had to be prepared before their departure. Elizabeth asked if he knew when he was leaving. Baln said it was an important mission, so he couldn't put it off any longer. See him for another 3 years. Baln said that Lecce will remain here, so she doesn't have to worry about training. Elizabeth said it wasn't necessary. Baln asked if she wanted to become strong as soon as possible, because he doesn't know when and what might happen. Elizabeth herself understood that he was right. Grace hasn't done anything lately, but she doesn't know what she might be planning, so she needs to be careful. Elizabeth was grateful and said that she would study very hard. She had to remember that it was very important to practice constantly because she couldn't get strong in an hour or two. The girl agreed. She hoped that when they met, the Duke would be very surprised. Suddenly, Elizabeth asked if she could come to see the Duke off, because she would like to give him something. He didn't even know what gift she was talking about. But if she just wants to thank him, then she shouldn't, because he should thank her. Elizabeth said she didn't do it to make him feel obligated. Moreover, on her part, this is not just gratitude. Elizabeth really wants to give it to him. Baln agreed since she insisted. It would simply be impolite to refuse further. The Duke said that he would be waiting for her at the wire. Elizabeth noticed that it had been so warm just recently. She didn't notice how much colder it got. Larry asked if the lady was cold, but Elizabeth said everything was fine. Larry thought that this way the lady might catch a cold. Elizabeth added that she wanted to finish this today. She will dry the leaves and they will drink tea. And it's true, they don't understand this. They can't do anything without the mistress. But lately Elizabeth has been working so hard. The main character herself didn't even think about how busy she has been lately. The girl remembered that she must prepare a gift for the Duke of Baln, and she can't miss training, and this winter promises to be colder than the previous one. Therefore, it is necessary to prepare furnaces with magic stones before the cold weather sets in. Aristocrats can afford them, but Elizabeth knows how to get them in large quantities. Therefore, today she definitely needs to figure out medicinal herbs and herbs for tea. They have guests. Larry said that Lady Seville was supposed to arrive today. She seems to be very close to Miss Grace. It was a very familiar name to Elizabeth. Apparently, this woman came to meet Grace. If Elizabeth remembers everything correctly, then this is Ervande Seville, the Duke's wife. Despite the fact that the Creed family had a lower status, it had great influence, because only priestesses were born in it. In addition, Grace was the Emperor's sister, albeit a stepsister. Many aristocrats tried to please her, and Lady Seville was generally the one who carried out her every order. It was on Grace's orders that she killed Elizabeth in her 3rd rebirth. However, this time things may be different. After all, as she changes, so do the people around her. Elizabeth asked Larry if she could find out why the lady came. The maid was surprised, and Elizabeth said that perhaps she needed to be met. Larry understood, but noticed that her mistress looked a little worried. Elizabeth completely relaxed. She's been so busy lately. And Grace kept herself quiet, and Elizabeth thought that everything was fine. Larry's maid did not enter the room. Elizabeth asked if she found out why the lady came. Larry said that she came for tea, and she said that this was a gift for Mrs. Elizabeth. And then she ordered to give her these leaves. She is so kind, because she has not even seen Mrs. Elizabeth. The main character realized that apparently there are those who will never change. Elizabeth relaxed too soon. She asked the maid where she had gone. Larry believed that the lady had gone to Mistress Grace's reception room. Elizabeth headed somewhere. The maid immediately asked where her lady had gone. Elizabeth turned and asked if Larry was any good at baking. Grace is constantly asked for things, and she is grateful for it. The lady herself believed that she should help the mistress in her difficult task. Grace certainly couldn't have done it without her help. Grace believed that obtaining angelium was a difficult task. A species of poisonous plant angelium. If its leaves are fried more than 10 times and ground into powder, they become toxic. And if you drink tea to which angelium has been added, all the victim's organs will fail. Bloody vomiting begins, and the victim slowly dies, suffering from pain and despair, while the last moments of life are consumed by terrible agony. It has no taste or smell, and almost no one knows about its poisonous properties. The crime committed will not cause any suspicion. The lady said that you play so kind to her that she should repay her. Grace wondered what was wrong with the intermediaries. Seville said that first they captured everyone who was connected with this. If something goes wrong, they can frame one of them and execute him. Grace didn't even know what she would do without the lady. She decided that she needed to have a holiday dinner with Jezebel. Seville noted that this was a very good idea. Her Kale just wanted to see her. Grace noticed that she seemed to want to marry her son to Josephine. But since she is the wife of a duke, you might want to consider this option. Suddenly someone knocked. Grace was surprised because she wasn't expecting anyone. It was Elizabeth. She greeted Mother and Lady Seville. Grace didn't understand at all why this girl came here. She doesn't want to see her face in her house anymore. Grace said she didn't belong here if she came without a proper reason. Elizabeth said it would only take a minute. Elizabeth heard that Lady Seville had left a gift for her in the outhouse, so she prepared cookies in gratitude. Elizabeth and the maid made it together. It really is very tasty, so she asks to try it. Seville did not expect reciprocal gratitude, but was glad to receive the gift. The lady was sure that she did not even suspect that she had given her poison as a gift. When she tried it, it was truly delicious. Elizabeth told her mother to try it too. Grace understood that she would die today or tomorrow, so she might as well do the favor one last time. When the two of them tried it, Elizabeth said that she put tea leaves in there that Lady Seville gave her. They were in complete shock. Seville couldn't believe that there was poison in the cookie she had just eaten. However, it is very strange that they did not add any flavor to the cookies. Elizabeth herself took the cookie and began to eat it. Seville tried to stop her. She figured that she probably got so busy while cooking that she forgot to add them. But Elizabeth really tried, so she hopes they like them. Grace had no idea how she found out. Seville thought they would die. Elizabeth simply decided to mock Grace. So she threw that cookie and didn't understand how she dared. Seville asked if everything would be okay with them. Grace confirmed this, and she said that she would deal with this incident. Seville doesn't have to worry about anything. Elizabeth spoke for the first time, looking this woman straight in the eyes. Elizabeth, of course, felt better, but she was still scared. She hopes she hasn't done something stupid. Then she ran into her daughter Grace in the corridor. Jezebel asked her why she didn't look where she was running, because she could fall. Elizabeth began to apologize, after which Jezebel asked who she even was. But the girl ran away. She tried to stop her, after which she realized that she looked like the woman from the portrait whom her father loved. Miel loved her daughter very much. Elizabeth stood aside and realized that it was her and her mother. The main character would also like to see her, at least in a dream. Elizabeth really wants to talk to her mom. Suddenly, she woke up. The girl noticed that Grace was next to her, asking where she was going. Because her place is on the other side. She threw it into the bag. Elizabeth began to run away and was already standing in front of the water. At the last moment, she decided to jump into the water. The main character understood that as a result, she would miss her last chance and simply disappear. And Elizabeth so wanted to use it to live her life to the very end. She cried and whimpered. Elizabeth woke up from her room and believed it was a dream. When she looked back, she saw her dad sleeping next to her. He began to wake up, and when he fully woke up, he began shouting Elizabeth's name. He told her to go back to bed because she shouldn't get up. It seems his daughter still has a fever. He was so scared when he found out. Elizabeth fainted. He asked what happened. The girl believed that she had probably been outside too long in such cold weather. Lately, she often walks with Larry in the garden. The daughter told Dick that everything was really fine. The Count said that nothing was wrong because she had been bedridden for 3 whole days, so she needed to rest. Elizabeth just plucked up the courage to say something to Grace and lay with a fever for 3 whole days. Father didn't know if he had the right to say that, but he would have been glad if she didn't smile, pretending that everything was fine. The baby is only 10, and she can still be just a child for a little while longer, so he asks her not to pretend anymore. Elizabeth hid under the blanket because she wanted to cry. Dick asked what was wrong with her. He believed that something hurt her. Even now, when she remembers past lives, Elizabeth still hates and despises her father, but feels that her hostility is weakening. The girl asked if Dad could stay with her until she fell asleep, and someday the day will come when this hostility will disappear. Dick said that he would be here even when she woke up. A few days later, Elizabeth spoke with the Duke. She heard that he was leaving in a couple of days. This was indeed true. They leave very early in the morning. Balna thought it would be difficult to come see him off. Elizabeth said that in that case, she would just give him the gift right now. The girl was very worried. Balna wondered what it had prepared that was so worried. Elizabeth didn't know if he would like it. The girl asked him to sit down for a minute. The Duke did not know that Elizabeth could bring him to his knees so easily. The girl immediately began to say that she didn't mean it that way. It's just that Elizabeth is still very short, so I had to ask him to sit down. She apologized many times. Baln noticed that it was a joke. Elizabeth was not very pleased because she was already worried. The Duke asked if she would give him the gift right now because he was all impatient. He is all impatient, but Elizabeth doesn't even know what will happen if the gift does not live up to his hopes. Baln already thought that she had changed her mind about giving it to him. Elizabeth apologized. She asked for a second. I couldn't get it out of my bag. After that, she allowed him to open his eyes because her gift for him was already ready. Baln asked if he could open it right now. Elizabeth confirmed this. This is tea that she made herself. She included medicinal herbs in it, so it has healing properties. It would be cold on the battlefield, so such a gift seemed appropriate to her. The Duke was very grateful to the lady. Elizabeth said it was a mere trifle. And in fact, she has another one. The Duke wondered what it was. Elizabeth finally made up her mind and placed a crystal pendant on the Duke's neck. Elizabeth thought that she could become his personal talisman. This is, of course, an inexpensive decoration, but still she tried. The Duke turned to the lady and asked if she had tried for his sake. The girl confirmed. Baln noticed that this was quite enough. He will gladly accept any gift from her, so she should not say that. Elizabeth said that if he was satisfied, then her efforts were in vain. Several days have already passed since Elizabeth woke up. Dick was going to go with her to the greenhouse today. He told her about the call from the Imperial Palace. The Count didn't want to go there. But, alas, my father asked if he should go there. Elizabeth said it was much more important. Her father should go there, because they can go to the greenhouse another time. Dick is sorry, but the problem is that he doesn't know how to tell her about it. He was wondering why the Emperor had called him for such an important matter. The Count came in and bowed, spoke of glory and honor to the great bards and Aulin, and greeted the Emperor. The gentleman noticed that they had not seen each other for a long time. The Emperor ordered all guards to leave the throne room. They tried to say something to the Emperor, but he sent them away. And absolutely everyone came out. The Count didn't think that he would kick out all the guards, so it's very interesting what he wants to tell him. Since ancient times, relations between the Imperial family and the Cretan family left much to be desired. The power that allowed him to subjugate the entire people of the empire, an ability received a long time ago from the god of war Eowyn. It didn't work on Count Creed's family, and therefore, for the Emperor, this family became a dangerous figure, which could start a riot at any moment, and although the relationship became much better, no one knew when and for what reason everything could go wrong. The Emperor noticed that recently people whom he considers to be his hands are too far from him, and this upsets him. The Duke of Baln is busy with the war, and nothing can be done about it. But he did not call the Count to complain about this. He noticed that they say that his eldest daughter is very gifted. Everyone who visits the throne room do not forget to mention what a genius she is. Dick noticed that if you read a lot of books, it means you are gifted. Yes, it is. However, she is not the bearer of the mark, but simply a useless child. The emperor noticed that if she had a mark, she would become the mistress of the temple, which has been empty for a long time. All female children in the Crete family inherited God's gift, but only those who were born with the mark could become the full-fledged mistress of the temple. A priestess with a mark, capable of protecting the empire from epidemics and enemy raids, was tantamount to a deity for ordinary residents. But the priestess, who was marked at birth, had to remain in the temple until the end of her life for the prosperity of the empire. Whether they could consider the trust of the emperor and the citizens of the empire to be their trenches is unclear. It is also unclear whether it happened that they wanted to live an ordinary life. First of all, everyone doesn't put much faith in God. As the emperor said, if Elizabeth had the mark, she would do everything to help the empire and its people. She would have earned the love and support of people and would have left a mark on history. And let it sound selfish, but the Count is glad that she was born without her. The emperor could not believe that this was really the Dick he knew. The emperor said that nothing can be done if there is no mark. In fact, he called him on a different issue. The gentleman heard that many people would like to date his daughter. Dick asked what he meant. Among them is Earl Peterson, who made a huge contribution to this expedition. Dick noted that in terms of contribution, he was unlikely to surpass him. The Count is right here. In fact, the issue with his marriage has already been resolved, and the emperor doesn't like his son at all. But the emperor asks to listen to his proposal. He asks to allow Elizabeth to meet his third son. Dick thought that Dale really thought he was an idiot who didn't understand what he was up to. The emperor told him not to be angry, but just to introduce them. His son is a smart boy and very handsome, just like him. Dale wasn't kidding. The Count himself knows who is starting these rumors. The more rumors like this spread about Elizabeth, the more some people will envy her. And someone will decide that it is a good investment that is worth purchasing. Dick can't always be there. The Count said that she was strong enough, and he is ready to protect her for the rest of his life. No matter how much Dale convinces him now, Dick is not going to resolve the issue with her fiancé at the moment. Since he is so stubborn, the emperor no longer sees the point in insisting. Dick noticed that this was the right decision. He forgot about their relationship. But besides being friends, they're also a boss and a subordinate. Therefore, the emperor orders that Crown Prince Sapirin be presented to the daughter of the House of Crete. Of course, the Count knew about the rumors about Elizabeth. This is because Elizabeth earned the love and interest of both aristocrats and ordinary residents. The eldest daughter of the Crete family was not only smart and beautiful, she was a child whom the Count loved, even despite the absence of a mark. Dick understood that there would be many who would want to marry her. Total pain. Dick puts off inviting the Crown Prince as best he can. Someone knocked and the Count let him in. It was Elizabeth. She told her father that she was wearing the dress he gave her, but she thinks that this dress is too beautiful for someone like her. Dick said that this is not so because it suits her very well. So much so that he regrets that the baby could not wear this beauty earlier. Elizabeth believed that he only said that because he was her father. The Count noticed that she looked so much like Miel when she smiled, after which he invited her to take a walk, because she needed to walk such a beautiful dress. Camille burst into the library and called for the gentleman. Dick asked if he had forgotten that no one was allowed to enter here. Camille apologized, but he had to report that the Imperial carriage was currently approaching the gate. Elizabeth was very curious about what happened. The father told her that her daughter would have to wait a little, and it is advisable that she does not go out to the gate in the near future. Elizabeth tried to stop him and asked if something serious had happened. Dick said that everything is fine and he will be back soon, so the baby has nothing to worry about. Elizabeth had never seen him so confused. She believed that it was something serious if someone came directly from the Imperial palace. Elizabeth decided to hide in the garden and take a peek. The Count asked if they wanted to say that this was an ordinary visit. The man said that everything was correct. And there is also a gift from His Majesty. The Count said that he did not need a gift, but the purpose of the visit. He knows better than anyone that this family doesn't pay visits just like that. Besides, he wouldn't have come here on his own. The Count must know who is in the carriage and for what purpose he came. The gentleman said that the Count was so friendly with his quantity. Dick asked if his friend, that is, the Emperor, was sitting in the carriage now. The Count walked towards the carriage. The man tried to stop him and told other servants to stop the Count. At this time, there is an outbuilding in the garden. From here, you can hardly see anything, and you probably won't be able to get any closer. There's nothing you can do. Elizabeth decided to ask her father when he returned. Then I remembered that the maid should now be in the main building. Father will be walking from the main gate. Therefore, she does not understand at all who is standing next to her. This guy came out and apologized for the intrusion. His name is Cain. This is Seperin Cain Roten. Elizabeth bowed. She was pleased to meet His Highness. Cain also bowed and said that he was pleased to meet her. When Elizabeth has not met Cain, he is always the same. Beige and kind. He always saved her. In past lives, when Elizabeth was kidnapped and abandoned in the forest, it was he who saved her. He said that he got confused in the forest after escaping from the Imperial palace without security. And when he heard a girl crying somewhere, he followed the sound and found Elizabeth. He hugged the girl and said that soon they would send guards from the palace to find him. And he will definitely arrange for Elizabeth to be taken home so she doesn't have to worry. Elizabeth was very grateful to Cain. He seemed to her then like a prince from a fairy tale. And although they met differently now, he still has kind eyes. Elizabeth noted that she was, of course, a little surprised, but she couldn't just abandon the guest of honor. Elizabeth offered to show him the estate. The estate is even more beautiful than the prince heard. Also, Elizabeth is just as he thought. Elizabeth wanted to offer him something, but suddenly the prince stood on her leg and she began to fall, but he grabbed her. Elizabeth began to apologize and say that it was all because she suddenly turned around. Cain was also very apologetic to her. If he doesn't mind, Elizabeth can show him the greenhouse. Cain didn't even know if he had any reason to refuse. Elizabeth called him to follow her. The prince did not understand at all why his heart was beating so fast. Cain had heard about the Crete family's greenhouse several times. They say it was built by Mother Elizabeth. The prince noticed that it was truly wonderful here. Elizabeth was grateful. She also admires it every time she comes here. Of course, this greenhouse has always been beautiful. When Elizabeth put her hands on her, the number and variety of flowers has increased many times here. Her father told Elizabeth that she really seemed to have a talent for plant growing, and now I understood why such rumors were circulating around. Elizabeth asked again, to which the father told her not to worry about it. Elizabeth was very interested in what he meant then. Cain turned to Elizabeth and told her to have a petal in her hair. He took it out, and the girl was very grateful to him. This is Onely. It has a very unique scent, and Elizabeth really loves this plant. Onely is a plant from the Cajun Empire, which is very far from Seperan. Elizabeth said with delight that she had read about it too. Due to the warm climate, you can find many amazing flowers there. Cain asked if she liked talking about other continents. He doesn't brag. He just often travels to different continents for his studies. Elizabeth was simply delighted. Cain said that he could tell everything he saw and heard. Suddenly, the Count burst into the greenhouse. Elizabeth was surprised because she didn't expect it. Dick said that he was just looking for his lordship. The carriage was empty, and all the servants in the house insisted that they had not seen anyone. Counts could not think that they would be here. Cain noticed that he and the gentleman had not seen each other for a long time. The prince immediately apologized for the intrusion because His Highness had ordered him to meet with Elizabeth. He said that next time he would come, observing all the formalities. The Count really hopes so, although he is not at all sure what the next time will come. Elizabeth did not like this atmosphere at all, so she offered to sit down and talk. After all, his lordship just wanted to tell her about other continents. The prince noticed that both Lady Elizabeth and Count Dick were exactly as his father, the emperor, had said. Cain told the lady that he had to go. Elizabeth was surprised at such haste. The prince said that he was not invited today, so he thinks that he should not abuse the hospitality. But Cain hopes that he will soon be able to receive an official invitation. As a result, the Count again contacted the Imperial family because his daughter agreed to this. The prince asked her to call him by name next time and kissed the lady's hand. Dick was simply horrified by what was happening. Elizabeth told her father that she wanted to go somewhere, so Elizabeth asks her father to accompany her. Jezebel, did something happen to her mother? Play, in turn, was silent. Grace asked if it seemed unfair to her, because if it weren't for that rubbish Elizabeth, she could have had everything. The girl wanted to say that she was fine now, but her mother started shouting at her. After all, Jezebel should be the only one to meet the Creed family, and her mother will do everything to ensure that Jezebel receives the mark and the love that is due to her. Grace said she should just be a little more ambitious. She added that Kihar suggested one way, although Grace is infuriated that this will not allow her to end Elizabeth once and for all. But she will make a sacrifice for Jezebel's future. They just need to wrap it around their finger. Jezebel completely understood what her mother was up to this time. She gets angry so often lately. Well, she saw a girl in the garden. She wondered who it was because she had never seen her before. Perhaps this is a new maid, but for some reason she is walking outside even this late. And for some reason, Jezebel feels like she just got out of the woods. Today, Jezebel heard her mother talking to someone. She ordered to take her to the forest before she woke up. Jezebel decided that this couldn't be true and assumed it was a coincidence. It was after that day that she became so angry. Jezebel didn't even know what she should do if this wasn't an accident. People were shocked when they saw Count Dick. Many did not understand at all what she was doing here. Next to him, apparently, is his first daughter, Elizabeth. Her father told her to be careful, and he asked her to let him know if she wanted anything other than books. But Elizabeth said that she only needed books. But I didn't quite understand why everyone had such a reaction. Suddenly, a woman ran out of the crowd and shouted that it was an honor for her to meet Lady Elizabeth. She only dreamed about it, and she got such a chance. Elizabeth greeted her, but the girl didn't know who it was at all. The woman hoped that the lady would accept it. These were overly beautiful apples. The woman's family owns a small apple orchard. The land was not very fertile, and they were almost desperate. But now, thanks to Elizabeth, their garden is blooming and smelling. The girl didn't quite understand what she meant. Elizabeth is the first daughter of the Creed family in 100 years. The gift God gave her saved their family. Elizabeth remembered that she had heard that Dad and Grandpa's generation only gave birth to boys. Therefore, there was a severe drought. Elizabeth asked if she could find out her name. The woman's name is Ekna. Elizabeth said that she would be happy to eat these apples. The Count noticed that now it was time for them to go to the bookstore. He thinks that there are still many people who want to talk to her. Shouts could be heard from the crowd that some were growing potatoes, others were making bread, and everyone was asking to take this as a gift. Her father thought Elizabeth must have been upset that they couldn't get to the bookstore, but the girl said that everything was fine, because on the contrary, she was happy, because so many people thanked her. Elizabeth told Dad that she must really live a long life. The father agreed with this, and the girl added that she wanted to live a long life with her dad. Therefore, he must protect her. The father asked why she was suddenly asking for this. Elizabeth thought she knew very well who she was, that she is a useless child without a mark. But today, Elizabeth realized that this was not so. They said the years of no harvest were over when Elizabeth was born. It was even difficult for her to imagine how they were people when she was dying again and again. Eliza assumed that they were suffering in an eternal wait for a fertile year. Before this, the girl had no reason to worry about other people's problems, and she only wanted to protect Larry and Cecile. But now, she realized that there are many more people, which she must, and most importantly, which she can protect. Now Elizabeth's life has meaning. After all, for some she is much-needed rain. Elizabeth told her dad that she wanted to live a long, long time and do a lot. Therefore, she asks him to protect her and the people dear to her. The girl hoped that her father was not angry. She thought that she and him had become closer. Dick thought about how his daughter called herself a useless child, born without a mark. The Count was angry with himself because it was he who put such thoughts into a 10-year-old child. He has no right to cry in front of her. He called out to Elizabeth and then took her in his arms. Now he knew how the others felt when they hugged her. Dick apologized that it was too late, but he would also like to try what it was like. Elizabeth thanked him. Dick said that they had been doing what they had to do for so long, so she didn't have to be grateful to him. She is his beloved Elizabeth, and he also wants to live with her for a long, long time. And he will definitely protect her and those who are dear to her. Dad promised her to protect her, after which Elizabeth burst into tears. She really hoped that this was not a dream. The Count said that this was not a dream. The butler told the master that children need love. They need to be praised and patted on the head. It is also important to give strong and gentle hugs. Camille also agreed and added that that is why he brought her, hugging her tightly. Dick noticed that he was not asked, after which the knight apologized. The gentleman believed that only the mark was important. Dick told his daughter that even if it turned out to be a dream, he will promise her again when they wake up. He will definitely protect her. When the maid came into Elizabeth's room, she didn't understand at all why the lady's eyes were so swollen. Elizabeth told Cecile that everything was fine, and the maid shouted that ice was urgently needed. The girl said that she was really fine, and she asked her to tell her better what happened. After all, the lady noticed that Cecile was running. The maid gave her a letter. Jezebel Creed's 9th birthday. Jezebel's birthday, if you had never been on it before. If a person is going to organize a reception on behalf of the family, then I need the approval of the head. The Creed family had never held a child's birthday party without a tag, if Jezebel didn't have a mark. And my father just left yesterday after an unexpected call to the palace. It seems Grace orchestrated all of this single-handedly. Therefore, Elizabeth is very interested in what she is up to this time. There will be many eyes at the reception, and Elizabeth is now on good terms with her father. She cannot kill her as easily as before. It's just a birthday party. Perhaps Elizabeth is overthinking things. The lady said that this is not something they should worry about at all. In any case, everyone won't be too happy if Elizabeth comes. Cecile said that Mrs. Grace hopes that Elizabeth will definitely come. In order to prepare this holiday, all the servants of the estate were involved. Elizabeth noticed that they were really preparing seriously. The girl herself didn't know why she came here. After all, it's better to sit quietly and wait for your father's return, or send a man to the castle to fetch him right now. Suddenly someone called Elizabeth. When the girl heard this voice, she immediately realized that it was Jezebel. The girl asked Elizabeth what she was doing here. The lady decided that she had nothing to fear. Elizabeth hadn't even met her in her previous life. Perhaps this is her chance to win her over to her side. Jezebel snorted and said she looked like a mouse. Elizabeth tried to tell her something, but Jezebel noticed that she wanted to meet her anyway, so it's for the best. Elizabeth was surprised that this girl wanted to meet her because she didn't understand why. Jezebel turned and asked why she froze, after which Elizabeth immediately ran after her. Elizabeth was completely confused, so she followed her. But maybe this is Grace's trap. There might be poison in the tea. But after that, she decided that there was no need to be so afraid of everything. Jezebel added that her mother does not know about their meeting. The girl noticed that Elizabeth was even more pathetic than she thought. Elizabeth is completely insecure and far from elegant. Considering that she holds the cup with both hands, apparently she doesn't even know the rules of etiquette. There seems to be no reason why her father would value her so much. Jezebel doesn't understand why her mom is so angry. Elizabeth decided to ask why Jezebel wanted to meet her. The girl asked again. Elizabeth said that she had said that she wanted to meet. Jezebel asked if she was curious. It seemed to her that her father treated Elizabeth especially, so she wanted to see what he saw so special about Elizabeth. But Jezebel found nothing. She looks like a fool, so she feels sorry for Elizabeth. Jezebel is infuriated that Elizabeth is so helpful and pretends to be kind. Both Jezebel and Elizabeth don't have a mark, so Jezebel doesn't understand at all why no one supports her. Elizabeth didn't know it bothered her so much. She tried to do something, but Jezebel told her to just leave her alone, after which Grace knocked on the room. Jezebel realized that it was her mother. The mother asked why it took her so long to open it. Jezebel apologized. She was drinking tea. Mom asked if she told her that she shouldn't be so slow. Jezebel noted that no one knows what it's like for her. Mom sat down next to her and said, who knows how much Mom tries for her sake, for her birthday and upcoming debut, to make Jezebel the one to shine. To make Jezebel the sole heir of the Creed family. The girl tried to say something, but her mother told her that she should stop acting like a child. Grace noticed that the reception dress had arrived, and she was here to call her daughter to try it on. Elizabeth hid. She was very lucky, because if Jezebel hadn't told her, she would have been in big trouble. Elizabeth thought that her sister lived happily in this family, regardless of whether she had marksmanship or not. But what she saw now, it turns out that Jezebel is haunted by her own misfortunes. Jezebel's birthday reception. The ladies noticed that they really did try on Count Creed. After all, they say that the true heir of the Crete family is Jezebel. Lately, there have been many rumors that the Count is especially concerned about his first daughter. Grace told her daughter that the Count's wife wanted to give her a gift. The woman was glad to meet Jezebel. This is a very modest gift, but it comes from the bottom of my heart. Countess, congratulations to the girl on her 9th birthday. Mom was angry with the girl because she told her to smile and not walk around with a dull face. Jezebel thanked the Countess and noted that she would treasure her gift. The guest didn't understand at all how she could be so cute. This is because she looks like her mother. Grace was pleased with the reaction because she believed that this was how her daughter should be treated. But this is not enough. A bit more. Elizabeth finally arrived. Elizabeth Creed's exit has been announced. The guest did not understand how she dared. It's good that Elizabeth decided to go alone. If Larry or Cecile saw this, they would definitely be upset. Although it is quite tolerable here, the lady was told she killed her own mother, and she's so thick-skinned. They did not understand how Elizabeth dared to walk with her head raised. These kids are really scary. There are rumors about who is secretly leaving the estate. Enfant terrible. There's definitely a reason why she is not mentioned as the heiress of the Creed family. And today, they will see confirmation of this. After all, this is the first event since the game became the head of the family, and its star is Jezebel. Now it is extremely clear who the Count really favors. Jezebel felt that no matter how much her mother hated Elizabeth, it was too much. The holiday promises to be not only luxurious, but also interesting. They cannot be sure who exactly organized this reception. The woman noticed that she and Grace had not met for a long time, and was glad to finally meet her. Herden Archduke. His wife Diana came, Seryoga's son Charlene. When Grace heard her, she immediately grabbed her daughter and went to them. Grace noted that she did not know that there would be such guests. This is such luck, because if she can establish relations with her family, they will easily find themselves in the center of secular society. Saying something about the Archduchess doesn't even make sense. Her daughter is educated and knows her worth. And Sarant, who are among the most elite students of the Royal Academy. All of them will be excellent decorations that can highlight the beauty of her and Jezebel. Grace noticed that they didn't seem to know about the dress code. It was assumed that her and the children's outfits should be combined. The Archduchess knew, she just couldn't pay attention to it. Grace understood and said she didn't have to worry about it. The Archduchess happily congratulated Jezebel on her birthday, expressing sincere wishes for prosperity and happiness in the new year of life. And she noticed that the girl looked even cuter because her and her mother's outfits were in harmony. The daughter called her mother, and they told Grace that they were busy for now. Grace believed they were looking for someone, and the Archduchess said that they wanted to see Elizabeth Creed. Diana's daughter really wanted to meet Elizabeth. Grace was furious that they had come here for this girl. Elizabeth did not understand at all who she was, that she was so glad to see her. Mom noticed that Charlene was embarrassing Elizabeth. The Archduchess introduced herself. The woman noticed that she was much more beautiful than she had imagined. Elizabeth said that if she let go of her hand, she would introduce herself according to the rules of etiquette. The Archduchess believed that they could let go of these formalities. Her daughter also really wanted to say hello. Still, Diana has heard that thanks to Elizabeth, the lands have become fertile again after a long drought, so she is grateful. Elizabeth said that she hadn't really done anything like that, but she was very grateful. Diana introduced her son, Sarent. The guy was glad to meet him and hoped that they would get along. But Charlene jumped out instead and said that she was happy too. She invited her to be friends. Elizabeth was also pleased to meet the lady. It is an honor for her to become friends with such a wonderful girl. The Archduchess told them to have fun while she talked to the adults. Jezebel feels that they are both in a completely different world, divorced from reality and time. Grace was simply furious and did not understand why everything did not go according to her plan. She specifically said that the outfits of the children and their parents should match, and all to emphasize that Elizabeth is alone here, that she has no mother to take care of her. Sarant hoped that since they were friends, she would be with him too, and added that they could get on the same page. Elizabeth agreed. Charlene said that Elizabeth must come to tea next time. Grace didn't understand at all why her daughter wasn't in Elizabeth's place. Charlene asked Elizabeth if it's true that she doesn't have a mark. Saren told his sister to watch her language. Elizabeth said everything was fine, and she thinks it's true. Saren tried to explain himself, but Charlene said that since there was no mark, then so be it, because the Count still loved her very much. The Countess approached them and said that Lady Harden was deeply mistaken. The lady did not understand why. The Countess told her to look around. These are the first receptions since the Count became the head of the family, and it's in honor of Lady Jezebel's birthday. Charlene asked why he wasn't here then, since he valued Jezebel so much. The Countess tried to explain herself, but Grace intervened and said that he had urgent business. Grace said he was so upset that he would not be able to attend the reception, who personally organized for his beloved daughter because of the call to the palace. In addition, Creed never liked to appear in public. She is now a target of hatred, and the reception in honor of her sister was organized first. And Grace hopes that one day their Elizabeth will also be able to receive enough love. Suddenly, Dick's voice was heard from behind, asking who was now the object of hatred because he didn't hear. The Count asked his wife to repeat again what she had just said. Grace immediately approached him, but the Count said that there was no need to tell him or explain anything to him. Later, she would have to bear responsibility for today. The Count was shocked by what his wife did while he was away. Dick told Elizabeth that he was a little late, but the girl didn't mind at all. The Count apologized for making his daughter feel lonely. Elizabeth told her dad that she was really fine and had made good friends. The Count realized that these were the children of the Archduke. It turns out that the Count's wife lied. The video immediately shows that it is not Lady Jezebel who is the favorite daughter, despite the lack of a mark, but Lady Elizabeth. Dick believed that Elizabeth was tired today, so he suggested leaving. Alice prefaced that this was a reception in honor of Jezebel's birthday. The main character decided that she should meet her sister later and console her. Dick said that it was Grace who started all this chaos, so she had to clean up the mess. Charlene noticed that the atmosphere had become very strange. Her mother told her not to express herself like that. Of course, it's a pity for the girl. But for a woman who could not intimidate one small child, this is not even a punishment. Charlene asked her mother how she liked Elizabeth, because the girl believed that she was more beautiful than they say about her, and she behaves just like an adult. Mom noticed that her children seemed completely fascinated by her. The Archduchess invited the children to invite Elizabeth to their place for tea. Elizabeth received an invitation to tea and was delighted. She felt doubly joy from this event, looking forward to pleasant communication and the opportunity to spend time in pleasant company. Yesterday, Charlene said that she definitely wants to play with her, so she should come to them for tea tomorrow. Sarant asked Elizabeth if she wanted to ride on the Archduke's carriage. He would ask Dad to send her for her. Elizabeth said it wasn't worth it because she could climb on her own. The Archduchess told the Count that their children quickly found contact. Diana's daughter really wanted to meet Elizabeth. The Count walked away. He approached his daughter and asked if she had decided to go for tea tomorrow, and the little girl confirmed it. Elizabeth already thought that he was against it, but the Count was only for it. Only he himself would take her from there. Elizabeth was simply delighted that Dad would actually come to pick her up. The fall of the princess, once considered a future priestess, symbolized the destruction of long-held hopes and the loss of their power. A reception that had to be completed hastily because the Count's permission was not received. She was practically expelled from secular society. These are all headlines in the local newspapers. Grace sent them high-grade tea leaves to shut them up, but this probably wasn't enough to keep their mouths shut. It's all because of Elizabeth. Either mother or daughter, they won't be able to get Grace. The woman decided that she would never forgive and would crush Elizabeth Creed, just like her mother. Hatred seethed deep inside her, fueled by old grievances and unforgiven sins. Memories of the past surfaced in her mind. Now Elizabeth knew what the Archduke's estate looked like. It was very happy. The Archduchess greeted her. Elizabeth greeted, and the woman repeated what she had already told her. Elizabeth doesn't need to go through all these formalities. Charlene and Sarant are already waiting for her in the dining room. She needs to go that way. Jane stood before her Hardane. This is her husband. Elizabeth was pleased to meet you and introduced herself. The gentleman was very glad that she accepted their invitation. Elizabeth was very grateful to James. The wife decided to take a walk since they were already out. so the butler shows Elizabeth off. James noticed that she was like I said his wife. She is amazing. Now they understand why Elizabeth is so loved, despite the lack of a mark. It turns out that the rumors that Dick cares about her are true. Diana confirmed this. A sudden flash of tenderness is noticeable on Count Dick's eternally cold face when he sees her. Charlene said that since they had eaten, they could start the tea ceremony. Elizabeth said everything looked so delicious. The girl noticed that the cake from their chef was especially delicious. To be honest, Charlene wanted to play in her room, and her brother also wanted to join them, so there's nothing to be done. Elizabeth said that there was nothing wrong with that, because the more there are, the merrier. Sorrent admitted that there was a reason why he said he would join them for the tea ceremony. He asked Elizabeth if she was really learning how to use a sword, and he would like to ask if she would mind studying with them. Charlene asked if Elizabeth was okay. It turns out that those who train immediately noticed this. Elizabeth decided to ask the guy why he decided to invite her to train with them. It's just that Sorrent knows that they don't teach swordsmanship in their county, but they have excellent teachers. Charlene said it was because they would be able to see each other every day. Sorrent shouted at her. Charlene asked if she was wrong. Sorrent said that was not the case. Elizabeth was grateful for what she was offered. There are circumstances why the place where she is studying now is the most suitable. Charlene was sorry because she would have been happy to see him more and more, using training as an excuse. Every time they met for another lesson, her heart was filled with warmth. She appreciated these moments. Sorrent would really like to ask her about these circumstances, but he thinks that she herself will tell when she is ready, Elizabeth promised him. Charlene noticed that her brother was blushing, but Sorrent said that she just imagined it. The sister tried to turn him towards her to look. Studying here is not a bad idea, but she loves the opportunity to see the Duke of Balne, whom she misses so much. Charlene asked Elizabeth what she was thinking about. The girl said it was nothing. Charlene suggested they talk about something interesting. The maid came into the room and apologized for interrupting them. She said that Count Creed had arrived and said that he had come to pick up Lady Elizabeth. Elizabeth was shocked because he arrived so early, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. She expected his arrival much later and did not have time to prepare properly. In a hurry, she cleaned herself up. The Count thought that he would pick it up and return right after lunch. Brother and sister whispered to each other. Elizabeth told her father that next time they should agree on what time he would pick her up. Elizabeth asked for forgiveness and said that she would come again soon. The Count suggested stopping at the bookstore. They were leaving so early. Charlene noticed that Mom and Dad would be very surprised. Sorrent never thought that he would come right here. Sorrent told his sister not to be sad, because she said that she would come again soon. They would just send her another invitation. A few days later, border with Jetran, the Duke of Balne woke up in horror from that same dream. The man asked what she was doing again, to which the girl replied that, as always, they were planting plants. The Sir noticed that she was again wasting time on a useless activity. He asked me if she felt sorry for the seeds that they got with such difficulty, but the girl had a different opinion. The guy noticed that she didn't succeed last time. It was the earth that abandoned them, and she must understand this, seeing how all these people are dying of hunger. But nothing will change if the girl just gives up. Even now it seems that there is no result, but she feels that little by little, everything is changing. Both the land and the people. He sees it too. The eyes of people who didn't give up. He's having this dream again. Why? Suddenly, a servant ran in and told him that they had been attacked. Balne ordered everyone to take their swords. Things seem to have calmed down a little, the knight also thought. Balne noticed that they were attacking more and more often, but for now, they are suffering minor losses. Even if the damage is small, you should not ignore it. Balne ordered to clear out and help the wounded. Balne thinks that Elizabeth did this with the hope that he would return safe and sound. The Duke does not feel the magic at all, but thinks that the amulet has some effect. Balne ordered Harka to ensure that the wounded were treated as quickly as possible. The guy didn't quite understand what his master meant. They must return home as soon as possible. Hark didn't understand at all why this suddenly happened. Balne asked if he wanted to go home. But that's not what Hark meant, in which case he should move and do his job. The guy became very interested in why he was drawn home so much. He decided to give orders right away. Elizabeth was simply shocked. because her father proposed to throw a luxurious reception in honor of her 11th birthday. Elizabeth told her dad that it would be enough for her if she could spend this day alone with him, or she could call those with whom she was close. Dick said that all this time he was a bad father, and they never celebrated her birthday. Therefore, he would like to celebrate it properly, because this will be his first congratulations. Her father apologized if this was too burdensome for her. He spoke with sincere regret in his voice, realizing that he could accidentally add to her troubles. Elizabeth is truly grateful to him for this desire, but the situation with Jezebel was very recent. Therefore, everyone will look at her askance. It's better to have a joint appointment later. The Count smiled and did not understand who she was, and he agreed to do as she told them. Grace prayed in the temple, and when Kihar arrived, she said that he was late. Priest Kihar. He said that he is quite a busy man, and Grace knows about it. He asked why she decided to meet in person. Grace told him not to pretend he didn't understand. The woman screamed at him and asked how long she should wait. Elizabeth is getting a lot of attention now, the love and attention her daughter should have received. Elizabeth took everything. This girl has already robbed Jess of her rightful place, so she must be killed before it is too late. The priest understood her concern, but asks her to pull herself together. After all, he had already told her that they should wait for the right moment. Grace did not understand at all when this right moment would come, believing that after she gets all the love of society. The priest said that everything should be exactly like this. Grace thought this was complete nonsense. Kihar assured them that it was best to trust his guidance and not take any action on their own until the moment when she bathes in love, suspecting nothing, until the moment when her happiness reaches its peak. This is what they will be waiting for, and Grace must understand and obey him. Larry asked Elizabeth to come to her. Elizabeth came up and was simply in shock. Before her was a multitude of clothes that Count Dick had sent her. Elizabeth didn't even understand why Dad sent it. Larry said it was because her first birthday party was coming up. The maid asked if she had forgotten, and Elizabeth said that she had been very busy lately. In addition, until this moment, Elizabeth had never celebrated her birthday, which made this day special and new for her. Larry said that everything was fine, because now it could be organized on a grand scale. They quickly and enthusiastically chose a dress, the day of the birthday party. Elizabeth approached her father and asked what he was doing at the moment. The Count was simply shocked. Ellie said that her maid said that on such a day she should wear something special and festive, but Elizabeth thinks that this doesn't suit her at all, so she asks her father if he agrees with her on this matter. But the Count denied it, because she is very beautiful. Dick thought that the angel himself had descended from heaven. The Count noticed that since she was so beautiful today, they could still organize a magnificent reception. Elizabeth said you'll have guests coming soon. The heirs of the Archduke Herodine arrived. Dick thought they should meet a little later. It's such a relief that my father always acts quickly. Dick called Ellie over to him. He believes that they wanted to see her more than him. Who would have thought that this day would come? The day Elizabeth will hold her father's hand and meet friends who came specifically to congratulate her on her birthday. She was very happy to see them all together on this special day. Elizabeth really wished that she could continue to be as happy as she was with these people, and so that she can fully enjoy her last life at least this time. Time flew by so quickly. Elizabeth met her 13th spring. Elizabeth can now easily run 30 laps around the sports field, and although it's still difficult for her, she can make 100 swings of the sword. Her father noticed that just 2 years ago she was so thin. Now he couldn't help but admire how she had matured and changed during this time. But at some point she began to gain weight and became very cute. Elizabeth asked her dad why he was smiling so much. Dick said it's okay. He so wants to make his daughter even happier, so that she smiles brighter than anyone else. Dick turned to his daughter and said that he would like to discuss her 13th birthday. This time, he wants to have a grand reception. He asked if it was possible, because he promised that he would give her the most magnificent reception in return for the ones he missed in her childhood. Therefore, this time Dick will definitely fulfill his plans. That's for sure. He's sure of it. Elizabeth noticed that her father was too serious, because he was only discussing a child's birthday. Dick said it was very important to him. Elizabeth agreed to spend her 13th birthday as her father wanted. The girl hoped that he would make sure that everyone they invited could fully enjoy this holiday. The father promised and said that since she gave permission, the acts should begin to prepare. Elizabeth was simply in shock, and her father said that there was only a month left. She thought that this was quite enough. The Count decided that he needed to invite the most famous chef of the empire and make a 10-story cake. Elizabeth realized that this really bothered him. The Count noticed that there was new news. The Duke of Baln returns. Perhaps he has already returned. Dick asked his daughter to say hello to him if she met him at the estate. 1 week later, the Emperor came to the Duke and asked with a smile how long he had been waiting for him. No matter how monster he is, the Emperor still cherishes Balny, so he wants to hug him once. Baln told him to sit down. The Emperor noticed that he was just as thorny because he refused to hold a festival on the occasion of his return. In any case, Dale is glad that he returned safe and sound. Baln noticed that everything was healing on him, like on a dog. Since the Duke is in perfect health, he wonders how about drinking the night away. Baln said he was leaving. The Emperor asked him to stop because he had good news for him. There will be a reception at Earl Creed's estate this month. The Emperor hoped that the Duke of Baln would accept the invitation and go. The Duke did not understand why this should be called good news, because he does not look like a fan of hanging around at receptions. He hasn't been in Separan for a long time, so he doesn't know. It's Elizabeth's birthday party, the main culprit of the rumors. That girl whom the Count loves so much, even despite the lack of a mark. Baln didn't quite understand why the Count would change so much. But the Emperor was also not aware of the details. Baln believed that she had to change. At their first meeting, it was difficult for her to even stand on her feet. The Emperor added that in any case, they would arrange a magnificent reception. However, the Duke left without hearing him to the end. The Emperor shouted after him that if he decided to come, he could come in the evening. They would be there around this time. Baln asked what Oni meant. The Emperor announced that he would be there with Cain. Baln had already begun to think that the Emperor was up to something. But the Emperor said that they were just the same age, so he decided to introduce them. Baln didn't quite believe it. The Emperor did not understand at all why he was looking at him like that, because he was telling the truth. In general, the Duke does not want to listen to the Emperor's nonsense, so he resolutely leaves. Baln is a mysterious person, inscrutable even to the Emperor, despite their long acquaintance. No matter how close they are, Dale does not understand how Baln can slam the door like that when there is no one in front of him but the Emperor. Dale decided that there was no point in ruining such a good day with heavy thoughts, and it was better for him to discuss the gift with Cain. Reception in honor of Lady Elizabeth's birthday. Baln decided that this did not concern him. This should not concern the Duke, but he himself did not know what he was going to do with the purchased gift. The lady not only became more resilient, but also honed her sword skills, so the butler increased the intensity of her training. Balny asked Panda if this was so important that he came to report it to him in the bedroom. It seemed to Rand that the gentleman was worried about this, which he decided to tell him as soon as possible. He heard from Hark that the gentleman was very sensitive to Lady Elizabeth's gift, and it is still on him. In general, she will arrive in the evening, so it would be better if he personally watched her training. Baln asked if the Emperor invited him to look at it personally. The Duke himself could not believe that he was really so worried about Lady Elizabeth. The Master decided that this would not work, and he just needed to send Rand to deliver the gift. Suddenly, Lady Elizabeth knocked on the room and asked if she could come in. Baln allowed it. The girl was grateful. The man asked if the training had already ended. Elizabeth said that it had just finished. To be honest, Elizabeth was planning to return home immediately, but she would have regretted it if she had not seen that the gentleman had indeed returned. Elizabeth wondered if he was hurt. She was worried that something had happened, and then asked if he knew when he would leave for the battlefield again. Baln informed Lady Elizabeth that he was not injured, and everything was fine. He would rest for some time in Sepuran. This is such a relief for Elizabeth. Baln can't even imagine how worried she was. Baln noted that this was thanks to her. Lisa asked about Calburn Forest, and he said that too. But Baln talks about the talisman. Maybe it's just his fantasy. But it seems that this time he was really lucky. Elizabeth was simply shocked, so the Duke asked what it was. The girl is just glad that the gentleman kept it. Baln had something for her. Since she came, he was going to give it to random. This is her birthday present. Elizabeth couldn't even imagine it and was very grateful, but she was surprised that he was giving her a gift now. Baln said that he would not be at the reception, but she shouldn't worry about it, because he simply doesn't like such events. Elizabeth said that everything was fine and she understood. Besides, she could always see him here. Baln said he didn't think Elizabeth should come here anymore. The girl asked if she had done something wrong, but this was not the case at all. He started this conversation for her sake. So, you are a young girl visiting a man's house. Many may misunderstand. Elizabeth believed there was another reason. After all, almost no one knows that she visits the Duke's house. It was so sudden that Alice didn't even ask. Larry came into the room and asked the lady when she returned. The girl said that she had just arrived. Larry was so worried that her mistress was late. Elizabeth apologized and said that she had just been packing for a long time. The Duke is a busy man. She cannot constantly bother him. Therefore, from that moment on, Elizabeth decided that she would train on her own. Larry noted that this is the right decision, and she thinks that the Count will help her so that they can study together. Where during lunch she couldn't believe that the maid would actually deal with her. But Larry agreed. First they need to unpack their things or take a bath first. Elizabeth wanted to wash herself first. Elizabeth's training suit is very worn out. It would be better to buy a new one. Suddenly, Larry saw something in the window and was simply terrified. Everyone was running and shouting that there was fire in the greenhouse. The greenhouse was on fire, and Elizabeth simply couldn't believe it. Flaming tongues lit up the night sky, and the girl's heart sank with pain and fear. There, only she could smell her mother. This is the only place where she could feel her hands. Elizabeth had absolutely no idea what to do. She asked Larry what to do if the greenhouse was completely out of fire. And what will happen if people get hurt? The maid told the lady not to worry, because everything would be all right. Larry said that she would go to help. The mistress should wait here for now. Ellie didn't understand at all what was the point of her training if she couldn't do anything at crucial moments. The girl considered herself so pathetic. Elizabeth decided to pull herself together. Because she can't sit idly by, they've probably already extinguished everything. But she still wonders how bad it is. The mistress decided that this would not happen, and she should also help. But at the door, she met Grace. The woman asked if she was looking for her maid. However, it will be difficult for her to come. Grace thinks that this will kill her, and she already knows that there was a fire in the greenhouse, and all the servants went there. Elizabeth couldn't verify whether she really did it. Grace herself admitted that this was her doing, because she hated watching him spend all his time there, and how Elizabeth dragged him there. The girl didn't know what the woman wanted, but now it's late, so she can come tomorrow. Grace said that Elizabeth was just pretending to be a fool. She probably wasn't like that. She doesn't care, though. All Elizabeth has to do is just stand there. Elizabeth decided not to lose heart, because now she is not as helpless as in past lives. Elizabeth told the Countess that if she did not leave now, she would tell everything to her father. Grace noticed that in this she was so much like her mother. She acted like a count any way she wanted. Elizabeth looks like her to death. Pale hair and a stupid disposition that doesn't know what it means to give up. And this noble look, despite the fact that they have nothing. Since they are no longer similar, maybe they have the same expiration date. Elizabeth pushed Grace's hand away and told her not to talk about her mother that way. Grace said she was being rude even though she was shaking with fear. Maybe then she'll tell her about her and her mother's talent for charming people. Elizabeth shouldn't give in to this provocation, but she can't stand it anymore. Elizabeth heard that Grace was her mother's best friend. Apparently that's why she came running here as soon as she heard about her death. To fill the spot vacated by my best friend. Grace asked her again in horror. Despite the fact that Grace nevertheless took her place, she was never able to achieve the love of the Count. Elizabeth sent again to tell her the secret. It's just that Grace's behavior and appearance are too far from her father's tastes. Grace said that she didn't know anything, and she left her alive, taking pity on the child, and she dared to be insolent to her. Elizabeth noticed that she left her alive, not because Grace felt sorry for her. She was simply afraid of losing her father's attention. But as a result, this is exactly what happened to the Countess. She couldn't believe this happened, and Grace just laughs hysterically at first. She decided that it would make her feel better, but only when she kills Elizabeth. Elizabeth couldn't believe that this woman had such power. The girl decided to run and began to climb out of the window, but Grace immediately grabbed her. She asked if she was going to jump out of the window, and when she grabbed it, she asked her to try again, or she may begin to beg the woman for mercy. And she must not forget that this is all anger that she caused herself. Elizabeth didn't want to die like that. After which, someone knocked on the room and Grace let her go. Grace asked what it was. The servant reported that Abbot Kihar from the temple had arrived and was looking for her. And the maids are already coming back, and he thinks it's time for the lady to leave. Grace said Elizabeth was lucky this time. She must remember, no one will come into this room when Elizabeth is dying. The girl decided that she couldn't play with her like that, and she must talk about the power Grace has. The maids came into the room and asked in horror what had happened. Cecile ordered to call a doctor immediately. Elizabeth felt she had to say that Grace was dangerous, and she couldn't let her hurt her people again. Grace asked the priest what other prophecy he was talking about. A prophecy in a temple that has no owner. Grace, does he even understand what he's saying? She believed it was a hoax, just like last time. Kihar is still a priest and can distinguish truth from fiction. However, the prophecy has never appeared in the temple before. The owner's candy. Lighting absolutely agreed with her, but this time His Majesty also saw him. If this is the case, then Grace has no choice but to check. Grace asked what His Majesty was saying. Kihar approached her and spoke in a whisper. The priest said that even if so, nothing would change in what they had to do. The mark would appear on her daughter, and Grace had a hard time realizing that this could happen. This gave her mixed feelings and hopes for a miracle, accompanied by doubts and anxiety. Kihar reported that the last nun to bear the mark was born more than 400 years ago. There are no records of the appearance of the mark, and the people who knew about it have already died. There is a place that he cannot find. Either way, they can continue with the plan. Kihar heard that the first daughter lost consciousness. Grace admitted that it was she who could not cope with the anger and wanted to end it. The priest said that even if he is Jezebel, a mark will appear in the future. Then Grace must understand that if she goes to prison, then their plan is over. Grace did not tell him not to be stupid, because she is the daughter of the Emperor, and without any evidence, it is simply impossible to bring charges against her. Kihar understood her, but in any case, Elizabeth needs to be left alone for now. She can kill her when the time comes. After all, Elizabeth is their scapegoat. Kihar promised to contact her later. Grace still decided to wait a little longer. Once Jezebel's mark manifests itself, his love will belong to them. 1 week later, Dick thought that he had to protect his daughter. Whatever the prophecy says, until the time comes, Elizabeth must forgive her dad. He was supposed to protect her, but he couldn't cope with this task, and this happened. A month later, Kihar asked if the Count's first daughter had still woken up. It is said that the Countess went to the Leidern estate in the south. This news caused a lot of talk and speculation among others. She was so self-confident that in the end she was simply exiled from the palace. Kihar sent his servant away. This doesn't affect anything. After all, in any case, both the Countess and this girl are just consumables in the priest's plan. That servant was thinking about whether he should have reported that the Duke of Baln constantly visits the estate of the Count of Crete. And why did he forget these precious moments? Baln didn't know if she would remember him when it started. The great god addressed Separan, the blue flower that was supposed to put an end to chaos, but they are trying to trample it even before it blooms. They must be convincing and protect the flower. The moment the flower blooms, everyone who interfered with it will be brought to justice. At all costs, they must protect the blue flower. God did not abandon Separan. This is indeed a true prophecy, and the plot becomes more and more exciting. The Emperor noticed that today the night was especially dark. This happened after that day 7 years ago. The Emperor asked if Dick knew why he called him today. He understands that his father is worried about Elizabeth. However, 7 years have already passed since the prophecy was announced, and in Separan still no one has a mark. People are becoming more and more anxious, and attacks from other countries do not stop. Now more than ever, they need Dick's help. It's been 7 years since Elizabeth fell asleep. It was too late to get rid of those who threatened her, and he had nothing left but to beg the sleeping child to open his eyes. The Count could not save just one child, so he does not understand at all what he can do. The Emperor shares his grief, but believes that it is not his fault. Dick can't think about anything but Elizabeth right now. The Count believed that it was better for him to leave. Dale tried to stop him. Dick said that if something really important happened, he could simply give him an order on behalf of the Emperor. This is the first time Dale has seen the Count so devastated since Lady Maelle died. Rand told the Master that it would be better for him to stop, because 7 years had already passed since that day. Baln asked if he wanted to leave her to die. The butler denied it and apologized. The Master knows why Rand is worried. He is holding a Kendra bowl in his hands, a divine artifact that allows you to create potions that support vitality. However, it requires a huge amount of magical power in return. Perhaps because so many people died, deprived of all their strength, the artifact never filled even half. It was called the Cup of Death. But the useless body of Balnay, whom he accused, can be useful at least in this way. Then he would blame himself terribly. Time stopped for him the year he turned 20. It was so long ago that I can't even remember. Balnay was locked in a time trap. I don't even know the reason for his imprisonment. He had to watch everything disappear. The days he had to spend in this frozen time. The meaningless days when Baln fled to war in an attempt to fill the emptiness growing in his soul. If there can be any meaning to this meaningless life, Rand must send a letter to the duchy. The butler asked what he should write. The gentleman ordered to write. Then he sends a potion in honor of his 21st birthday. Grace asked what was happening in Separan's secular society. The girl noticed that her mother always asks about this when she visits there. Fashion has changed again, so she is ashamed to show up there in such a rustic outfit. Her mother didn't think he would help her with this, but Jezebel read that, of course, it will help. And his help is expressed in about 2 tasteless dresses, and she is obliged to wear them to all events. It's better to just kill her. Jezebel asked her mother if she understood how pathetic she looked. Although her mother doesn't know anything, she can't even leave here, and she has to endure all these humiliations because of her mother. Grace said she was truly sorry, and she didn't want to believe that her daughter wouldn't even give her a chance to apologize. Jezebel said she wouldn't, after which her mother began to hug her, and then Jezebel thought about what she had just said. The girl immediately began to apologize to her mother. Grace told her to be quiet because she seemed to be having a bad dream. Jezebel truly deserves. Therefore, she should only trust her and continue to do what she ordered. All they have to do is follow the plan because they haven't even started yet. Baln apologized for his early and sudden visit. The Count said not to say that. After all, if it weren't for the potion that he gives them, Dick would not be able to keep Elizabeth alive. Baln provided the gift. Dick didn't quite understand what it was. The Duke was not here due to a trip to the front during Elizabeth's birthday. Dick was very pleased, because he always takes care of a gift for her. But Dick will have to thank him instead. Baln said that everything is fine because he is not doing this for the sake of gratitude, after which the Count asked how about handing it over personally. Baln was grateful but refused. And just about to leave, the Emperor ordered him to appear at the palace, so Baln must leave him. The Count now realized that it was he who was handling the affairs of the Imperial family instead of him. Dick doesn't know if he'll ever be able to repay him. Baln noted that there is no need to talk about this every time. After all, he does it because he wants to, and he thinks that it's time for him to go. There's no need to see him off. A little more, and he would have agreed to hand over this gift personally. After all, she is already 20. The butler served Mr. Moralina tea and cookies. The leaves of this tea help with insomnia and refresh the head. Dick was grateful, but he didn't feel like it. Butler said that although the leaves have a strong healing effect, Moralina trees die quite easily even with light frost or light rain. If he managed to collect the leaves, then he will have to dry them, observing many conditions. This is a very finicky tea fox, but they store quite a lot of tea in their warehouse. Miss Larry said that after 7 years of aging, they are like medicine. Therefore, the butler is simply obliged to give them to the master. After all, these leaves were grown by Mrs. Elizabeth herself. The gentleman often skipped meals, so Elizabeth decided that he should at least drink good tea. so she raised it herself. Dick noticed that it had a pleasant aroma. This little child did all this for him. Burns wanted to ask the gentleman something. Dick himself knew that he hardly came here just for the tea. The lady said that she would arrive in the capital in connection with the upcoming event for debutantes and what the Count would order to do. Dick was offended that his daughter Grace's debut would take place before Elizabeth's. But perhaps because of the guilt that haunts him, because he ignored Ellie as a child, he no longer wants to shift responsibility to the child for the mistakes of an adult. The Count ordered to provide them with everything they needed because they missed luxury. If you give it to them now, they will behave well. The butler understood him and took his leave. Today the Count especially misses his daughter. It is very difficult for him without her. Suddenly Elizabeth woke up. She didn't understand at all why she was crying and why her body was so big. She was in so much pain. But she didn't understand why at all. She began to remember that Grace had attacked her. Lake came to her because she had finally woken up. He noticed that they had not seen each other for a long time. For starters, he thinks it's difficult for her to move now. After his magic, she should feel better, and it won't hurt so much to speak. Elizabeth was delighted, because just a minute ago she was in pain, but I was very grateful. The girl remembered and decided to ask what happened to the greenhouse and whether anyone was hurt, and why she felt so bad. Lake asked if she really didn't remember at all. Elizabeth remembers Grace attacking her, and she can't remember everything exactly. Well, it seems to her that she had a very sad dream. It is quite possible. Elizabeth definitely must have had at least one bad dream, because she slept for so long. Elizabeth was shocked that she slept for a long time, and did not want to believe that this time she slept for 3 days. Lake reported that she slept for 7 years. The girl could not believe at all that this was true. She quickly went to the mirror and did not understand at all how this could be. Elizabeth simply did not recognize herself. Lake understood her surprise, given that she was seeing herself for the first time in 7 years. But this is more likely because in the past she could not even dream of seeing herself at that age. Well, it's like it's not her, but that's not the problem. This is Elizabeth's last chance, and she has slept completely uselessly for 7 years. The girl did not understand at all what to do. Lake said to look at things positively. She almost died, but she didn't. Elizabeth began to cry. But she understood that if she was angry and sad, then the lost 7 years would not return. Lake was afraid that because of her long sleep, she would look like an adult but still think like a child. It seems he was worrying in vain. Elizabeth knows that he is unable to help her, but she wonders what happened during all these 7 years. Lake said that he will tell everything very briefly so that she can judge for herself. And although nothing special happened in the Empire itself, a lot actually happened. Elizabeth realized how much her father cared for her. If there was some kind of global problem, he would not have time for it. There are only 2 years left in the future that she remembers, and the most important thing of all this is the harsh winter with Zerper's disease. In a past life, a huge number of people died because there was no cure for this disease. But this time, Elizabeth stocked up on enough of the product before she fell asleep. So the remaining problem is the impending winter, terrible plague, and severe frosts. The aristocrats survived this winter by getting medicine or finding a wizard at any cost. But ordinary people died either because of illness or because they could not get food for themselves. Cred Youngjimin was no exception. She had to be cremated due to lack of space in the cemetery. Elizabeth needs to get a magic stone before winter sets in. This stone plays a key role in her plans, and the time to achieve her goal is running out. The real winter will still be with Joy. They are incredibly expensive, so only aristocrats can afford them. But Elizabeth knows how to get large quantities of these stones. However, nothing can guarantee the success of this plan. While Elizabeth slept, Kihar became high priest. Before she lost consciousness, she heard that she liked meeting him. In addition, Grace is still the priestess's deputy. These two must be connected somehow. Since Kihar has now gained power over the temple, Grace will not remain on the sidelines. Elizabeth was very curious about what kind of power she was using. She had never seen such power in her past life. Suddenly, Elizabeth became very ill. Something began to itch on her wrist, and a mark appeared. For the first time, the mark looks like a blue gem. After the color of the mark, it could change to any color. Elizabeth could not believe at all that she had a sacred mark. It was impossible for her to be seen. Elizabeth definitely read. About 20 of them, it becomes the size of a thumbnail. But in reality, it is quite small. She is very interested in when she managed to appear. If she appeared while Elizabeth was sleeping, then Dad and Larry, who took care of her all these 7 years, simply could not help but notice her. The priestess, whom the people of the Empire consider to be the very god, is sent to the temple as soon as the mark is discovered, where she will live until her death for the good of the Empire. Elizabeth believed that they had not sent her to the temple, even though they had discovered the mark. The girl recognized the voice behind the doors and decided that she needed to hide this mark somehow. She found a bracelet and realized that it would help her hide the mark for a while. Larry and the Count walked in and were completely shocked. Dick immediately rushed to hug her. He missed her so much. Elizabeth asked to be let in because she couldn't breathe. He apologized for making her feel lonely and for failing to protect her. Dick wanted so badly to apologize to her, and he was grateful that she was alive and that she opened her eyes and called him father again. Elizabeth said she was really fine, but her father didn't want her to overwork herself by waking up for the first time in 7 years. The girl cannot tell him the incredible story that thanks to Lake, she feels great. The Count is so worried about her. Maybe it would be better to tell him about the mark. But she immediately changed her mind. If anyone outside the family, or even worse, Grace finds out about this, she won't even be able to protect herself, let alone her people. The first thing Elizabeth must do is learn to use the power of the mark. Until that moment, everything must be kept secret. Father asked if he could tell Dad what happened then, 7 years ago. But if it's hard for her to talk about it now, then he will wait until Elizabeth gets better. The girl asked her dad to promise her that if she told him that he would not kill anyone. The Count told Elizabeth that it was normal to pay for the deeds done. She noted that 7 years have passed and evidence can no longer be found. Besides, Elizabeth doesn't think that her stepmother did it just like that. She definitely had a reason for this. Elizabeth really wants to know why she did this. And if she wants to do this, then it would be better to return to normal life, as if nothing had happened. After all, she will definitely try to get close to her again. Besides, it would bring her enough pain just because Alice woke up like that. She's afraid that her father will hurt someone because of her and strives to avoid this at all costs. The Count understood her and admitted that he was overcome with emotion. He promised that no one would die. So she can tell him everything. How Elizabeth first met the Duke of Balne, how Grace abandoned her in the forest. Elizabeth asked if Dad had forgotten his promise. If this continues, then he was definitely doing it in the yard. So Elizabeth said that she was fine now, and it was all because her father protected her. Elizabeth didn't even lose weight. She just lay in bed for 7 years. It's amazing how good she feels. My father said that it was all thanks to Kendron's potion. Elizabeth was wondering what was there all this time. Elizabeth was very interested in what medicinal herbs it was brewed from. It was the Duke of Balne who recently brought it as a gift. The lady could not even think that she would save her life. These are not medicinal herbs, but a special potion prepared using a sacred relic. No medicine helped. Elizabeth was slowly dying. Therefore, the Duke of Balne brought a sacred relic, and which people should not recognize. And this bracelet was his gift for her birthday. But he feels a strange aura, so he asks to show it to him. Elizabeth was shocked that they really knew. She asked if the bracelet was the reason. She just thought that he had put it on for her. The Count said that, of course, it belonged to her. There's not a thing in Creed County that doesn't belong to her. The Duke of Balne brought it as a birthday present, but he thinks there is some magic in it and he would like to see it. Every year he brought not only Kendron's potion, but also a gift for her birthday. Magic of movement and protection. Apparently, he puzzled over it for a long time, considering the high level of magic introduced into this bracelet. It seems he did it because he was worried about Elizabeth. It will be great if she can wear it all the time. Elizabeth noticed that Lake did not say a word to the Duke of Balne. The girl wondered what he was doing now. The father noticed that it was time to take Kendron's potion. Elizabeth didn't even think that she still needed to take it. The girl's body has gotten used to it, so it's dangerous to stop taking it. That's what the Duke said. When she drank it, she felt very bad. Instead of a mark, it hurts terribly, and she doesn't understand why this is happening. The father tried to do something, but Elizabeth said that it was not worth it. But it was only for a second. When he took off the bracelet, he saw the mark. Dick noticed that the head of the Crete family had several special abilities. One of them is the ability to calm by feeling the energy of blessing. When he took her hand, the pain immediately went away. The Count said that she finally appeared. The mark is still very small, and its energy is weak. But apparently, the mark reacted to the energy of the potion and caused a rejection reaction. Elizabeth decided to ask if he was sure it was a mark. She's still growing, but he's sure she is. It turns out that now Elizabeth will have to go to the temple. This is the Creed family's business. Perhaps he will send her out right now. The Count noticed that it was difficult for her now. And perhaps Elizabeth needs to be alone. Dick said that he urgently needs to settle some matters, so he will leave, and for now she will rest. The Count promised to come tomorrow as soon as the sun rose, and asked her not to get out of bed and to rest properly. Elizabeth really hoped that nothing would happen, and went to bed. The Count asked Camel how many unoccupied holy knights they currently have. The Flower Knights are a group of protectors in the Creed family. Their task is to guard the child with the mark until he is sent to the temple. Camel reported that there were only 5. The Count ordered all 5 to be assigned to Elizabeth. Camel said that there are already 5 guarding the lady. The Count said that this was not enough, and he also had to assign everyone who would be free in the near future to her. The Lady of the Holy Knights is here. In addition, their task is cancelled. Instead of guarding the mistress until she goes to the temple, once she is there, they will guard her. The Count asked Miel whether he made the right choice when he ordered all this. The Duke of Baln rode and thought about his dream. His name is Bardsa, and he is the god of abundance. The woman asked if it was true that he would share God's power. However, borrowing the power of a god will not be easy. The woman said that she would never take it easy. He does not want to simply share his power. He seeks to possess it. The woman wondered what the sentence meant. She wanted to know what benefits he would offer her in return for his support and strength. Her family from generation to generation will be a messenger, his voice on earth. As a family blessed by God, they will have wealth and glory in their hands. This will be a great gift and curse that will force them to make sacrifices. So he kept asking if she still wanted it, the curse that hides under God's blessing. Elizabeth told Mr. Bards that she agreed and accepted his blessing. Baln did not understand at all what it was. Rand asked if his master was okay. The Duke said that everything was fine, and asked how long it was left to the Creed estate. Rand said he would still have time to take a nap. The Duke did not understand at all why he did not remember this. Elizabeth. The girl decided that she should ask him. After all, she needs to know what he's thinking about. Elizabeth asked if she could come in. The father allowed it, and the butler also greeted the lady. Burns noticed that seeing her walk around the estate, he finally understood what it meant to be in 7th heaven. Dick asked the butler why he shouldn't do what he had assigned him. Burns said to call him any time if she needed anything. Elizabeth asked what Dad had instructed Burns to do. He didn't change anything while Elizabeth slept. But now it's time for Elizabeth to move into the main building. They should have done this earlier, so he apologizes. The girl said that there was nothing wrong with this, because she was already happy that she would be moving soon. But for some reason, he wants her rooms to now be located in the main building. After all, this makes no sense, given that you will soon have to move to the temple. Suddenly, my father started talking about the mark. Her father thinks it would be better to hide the fact that she has it for a while, because her father does not want to send her to the temple. The child who receives the mark becomes the owner of the temple. This is the duty of the Creed family. But all these 7 years that Elizabeth slept were a nightmare for her father. And then he decided that as soon as Elizabeth woke up, he would always be there to protect his daughter. And the Count will never leave Elizabeth alone again. The girl said that she did not want to leave and live in the temple. She doesn't want to at all. But her father said that Elizabeth had nothing to worry about because he would do everything as she wanted. By the way, he decided to ask if she was ready for the guest, because he would arrive soon. The Duke of Baln is now heading here to meet with Elizabeth, and he will arrive here in about an hour. Elizabeth was in complete shock and screamed that she had to go get ready. Her father asked her not to overexert herself. Well, the girl told her father that he had nothing to worry about. Dick noticed that she was still such a child in his eyes. No matter what happens, Dick will always be by Ellie's side, and he will definitely make his daughter happy. The Duke of Baln did not understand at all why he was so nervous, although 7 whole years have passed. And this is probably normal, considering that they are meeting for the first time in such a long time. Father without pity. Only now did he return these memories to him. Everyone wanted the witch dead. The man noticed that she tried so hard to end up dying such a death. The woman said that if you think not about the result, but about her entire life path, then this death seems so bad to me. The man asked to tell him if she had one last wish. He wanted her to ask him to save her so badly. Well, as always, everything turned out according to her will. The woman said that he had already fulfilled it, because she would spend her last moments next to him. This is so stupid, but if she had another life, everything would be different. Elizabeth entered the room and noticed that His Highness was probably already tired of waiting. Baln was in complete shock. Elizabeth asked if he was feeling unwell, but the gentleman denied everything. The lady noticed that he had lost a lot of weight. Elizabeth almost touched. Baln said that this was all because he had only recently returned from a business trip. Elizabeth noticed that he should have rested. The Duke noticed that Elizabeth should worry more about her health than about him. Elizabeth is surprisingly so active. The girl said she was fine and thought his medicine had helped her a lot. Come to think of it, Elizabeth still hadn't thanked the Duke. So she bowed and thanked him for his concern. The Duke wondered since when did she call him so formally, and he asked the lady to sit down. Elizabeth was still too young then. The Duke added that it sounds like it doesn't anymore. Elizabeth is still older than she was then. She woke up from a deep sleep after 7 years, and he probably thinks she's still 13. The Duke said that it would be better if she called him as before, just Mr. Baln. Elisabetta is really very grateful to him. It was she who should have come to visit him to express her gratitude, but she forced him to come himself. Suddenly the Duke asked the Countess not to move for a minute. Elizabeth told the gentleman that she didn't know why he was doing this, because he could just sit next to her. The lady assumed that he had noticed the mark, but she did not understand at all how. Elizabeth told the master that I was ticklish. He apologized. The girl thought that he had not changed a bit, but it seems that he has become more gentle. Baln asked if she liked the bracelet. Elizabeth sighed because she thought it was because of the bracelet. She really liked him, because he is not only handsome, but also as if created for her. Elizabeth is very comfortable with him. The Duke took great care when choosing this gift and wanted to see how Elizabeth would wear it. The girl was very grateful for his care, but now he is very close to her. Baln apologized. "It's not easy at all." Elizabeth didn't understand at all why she was so worried. The lady believed that this was because this had not happened in her past lives. He did not allow him to come to the Creed estate, even despite his daughter's debut. Grace threw the paper away and informed the maid that she and Jezebel would go first to the Creed estate. The maid asked if the Count allowed it. Grace said that Jezebel is the Earl's real daughter, so the answer is obvious. The maid must take good care of her daughter. Grace is worried about sending her daughter there alone. But Grace needs to deal with what Kihar entrusted to her. She wanted to show Elizabeth how easily everyone would give up on her. After 2 days, Elizabeth was glad that her father cared and changed his behavior out of love for her, but they are so big that it is very difficult for her to get used to being there. The mark has become larger. This is probably similar to the pain of a child's growth spurt. We need to hide it quickly. Someone asked her to wait, and Elizabeth immediately began to look around. The voice came from the mark. Finally, there was someone she could chat with. She had been waiting for this day for so long, and Elizabeth herself didn't even understand who she was. Elizabeth believed that this stranger was the mark. The girl confirmed this. For the first time, he hears that the mark has an essence. There was nothing about this in the book either. This girl noticed that Ani apparently is special. The merman has not yet left for the temple and has not become a priestess, but is already talking to her. And that girl didn't understand why she was only partially here. She asked if she knew how to use her power. Elizabeth asked her what kind of power this was. In any case, Elizabeth will find out about everything when the mark gets bigger. The stranger looked as if a ton of things had just fallen on her. They will always be together now. Elizabeth still doesn't know what her name is, because she can't call her Miss Mark all the time. Her name is Rindiobarkanakiben Hartraprel, but it's too long for Elizabeth. The lady asked how about just calling her Rin. She thought about it and happily said what suited her. Elizabeth could not even think that the mark, that is, Rin, had such abilities. Elizabeth saw the whole story of Separan as if it was happening before her eyes. Rin said that she has many other abilities that she can use as well. But the mark is still small, so she said that Alice herself can't do anything while waiting. Perhaps Elizabeth should have asked her about these abilities. Elizabeth couldn't do anything. The butler knocked on the room and asked if he could come in. Burns apologized for interrupting her rest. The gentleman simply offered to have dinner in the greenhouse today. Elizabeth was so happy and said that she was not busy, so he should tell him that she would come soon. Burns said that in this case they would wait for her in the greenhouse. Elizabeth thought he would notice Rin. The girl told her that the others could not see her. Elizabeth was afraid of her, and Rin asked if she could go to the greenhouse with her. Elizabeth said that it was just dinner, but Rin begged her very much and said that she would be quieter than water and lower than the grass. The lady agreed, but Rin had to be very quiet. Rin said that Unny could trust her. Rin asked when they discussed the mine, someone might have already found it. Then they will be able to find the magic stone. They seem to have very little time. Elizabeth herself understood that this was not an easy problem. Father asked Elizabeth what was wrong with her. Elizabeth didn't even know what to do if he asked how she knew about the mine, and what to say to her, and what to answer if he asks why she needs a magic stone. This is a world where magic and divine powers exist, so she can simply say that she learned about it in a dream. But if she does this, it will turn out that she collected it for her own father. Elizabeth wants to tell him the whole truth right now, but it's probably too soon. Rin said that Unny thinks too much. Rin believed that she could talk about this at any time. Elizabeth decided to ask why her dad wasn't eating. Dick, you yourself thought about what you need to eat. The problem is not just in the mine. Elizabeth needs to find a place where she can grow medicinal herbs in huge quantities, at the same time, without attracting unnecessary attention to yourself. No matter how much Elizabeth thinks, nothing comes to mind other than the dukedom. The lady thought about why she suddenly remembered Mr. Balna. Elizabeth blushed, and her father asked if something had happened. The girl said that everything was really fine. There was just something stuck in her throat. Dick is so worried that he forced her to come here, and Elizabeth is not feeling well. The mistress told her father that she was really fine, because she was much stronger than he thought. Besides, her father invited her here because he had an important message to convey. Elizabeth's opinion, of course, is most important, but the Count would like to officially announce that Elizabeth has woken up. Elizabeth didn't mind her father doing this. After all, there are those who will take action when they find out about this. Dick asks if Ellie will really be okay. The daughter confirmed this, because this way she can find out what happened 7 years ago. This will be Elizabeth's chance. Besides, Father said that he would protect her, and Elizabeth believes in it. The Count really promised, and he will no longer allow his daughter to be put in danger. He will take care of everything regarding the mark and the temple, so she doesn't need to worry. All Elizabeth needs to do is focus on her recovery. That's right. Elizabeth is no longer alone in this life, and everything will definitely be fine. Elizabeth began to wonder what kind of things her maids wore. She thought about the style and habits that shaped their lifestyle on her estate. Elizabeth received so many gifts and letters as soon as they officially announced that she had woken up. Larry had no idea that her mistress was so popular. Although, considering how beautiful she is, this is quite natural. Elizabeth also could not imagine that she would receive so much attention. This also did not happen in her past lives. Larry said to call her if the lady needed anything. Elizabeth was grateful that they helped. The lady asked what happened to Cecile. The maid said that her mother was alone in her hometown and she was very sick. Elizabeth immediately told her to leave and noted that she herself would tell Burns. If she goes, Elizabeth needs to pack some medicinal herbs for her. Cecile said that just a vacation would be enough. Larry asked if Cecile was coming because she needed to wash the curtains today. She told the lady to rest. Cecile was truly grateful, but Elizabeth wanted to give her medicinal herbs. The lady didn't even know if everything would be fine with her. Well, because this had never happened before. Suddenly, Elizabeth saw a letter about Charlene. Apparently, she was very worried. And the girl even visited her while she was sleeping. If she's okay, Charlene invites her to tea. Elizabeth decided that she wanted to go to a tea party. The official reason is that she quickly learns about the situation in secular society. But in reality, she just wants to see Charlene. Elizabeth was interested in how much they had matured. Elizabeth started asking Rin if she could help her. Rin asked what she could do for her. Elizabeth told her the whole situation. The knight asked Lady Elizabeth what she was doing here. The lady said that she was just walking. Suddenly, her father started running towards her. He said that Elizabeth is still weak, so he does not understand why she is not in the house. The girl said that she was already quite capable of taking walks, and besides, she was curious when her father would return. They decided to take a short walk around the area, enjoying the fresh air, after which they planned to have lunch together to continue their day in a pleasant atmosphere. Dick had a dream in which he watched his daughter being executed, but he decided that it was just a dream, and he shouldn't tell Elizabeth about it. This dream was too realistic. Asked her father what he was thinking about. Dick said it was nothing. Elizabeth said she actually had a request for him. The Count said that she could ask for anything. Elizabeth said that Charlene invited her to the tea party, so she asked permission to go. Elizabeth said that she felt much better, and she needed to find out what was going on in secular society. And there are also those who will protect her. The father had absolutely no idea how she found out about this. It was actually Rin who told her this. Elizabeth very much asked permission to go. At the same time, Rydern, the maid Cecile, came to her mother. The Count found it difficult to believe that the guards had somehow exposed themselves to Elizabeth. Camille was completely sure that this could not happen. Dick didn't understand how she knew about her then. Camille apologized because he had no idea. The gentleman asked if he was sure that he had not noticed anything special. He was told that the lady began to talk to herself more often. Dick was surprised. The Count did not understand at all whether the child who had just woken up and learned about the guards could have something to do with the fact that she was talking to herself. Dick sent the knight away and ordered her to report to him about any such trifle in the future. He has this dream again, even if it's just a dream. The Count does not understand at all why he is in it. He watched the man kill Elizabeth and asked him not to do it. Every time he woke up in horror when he saw the death of his daughter. The Count did not understand at all why he continued to have this dream. It's too real to be a dream. The Count really was with such a person. Dick often had dreams in which Elizabeth died, but this is the first time he killed her himself. Elizabeth will only be able to go to the tea party if her dad allows it. Rin asked why she wanted to go there so much. Mark thought it was fun. Elizabeth said that her friends would be there, and she would also be able to find out the situation in the world. Rin believed that the lady could simply ask someone at the estate. Elizabeth said that everyone on the estate sees her as a child and will not say anything like that. If this continues, it will be difficult to find the mine. Father came into the room. The Count asked if he had disturbed her because Elizabeth seemed busy. The girl said that she was just reading a book. She noticed that her father looked tired, so I figured he didn't sleep well last night. He wasn't sure if he was doing the right thing by telling her about this. This happened before, but now he dreams about Elizabeth more and more often. But the problem is, Elizabeth dies in them. The girl told her father that these were just dreams, and now she's sitting next to him and she's definitely fine. Dick thought so too at first. He even hoped that it was just a dream. But in yesterday's dream, he killed her himself. If this is punishment for neglecting Elizabeth, then Dick is ready to accept it. But he is so scared because he thinks that these may not be just dreams. Elizabeth asked her father to promise her that after listening to her story, he would not break. Her father didn't quite understand what Elizabeth meant. She wants her father not to break if she tells him everything. Therefore, he must promise her. The father said that if it was so difficult for her to talk about it, she could tell him about it later. Elizabeth finally revealed to her father the truth that this was already her 30th life. This life was different from the very beginning. Meeting with her father and how he treated her, what he felt towards Elizabeth. Elizabeth doesn't know why he started having these dreams, but she knows how much he loves her now. Therefore, Elizabeth is happier than ever before. so she hopes her father won't blame himself. Because now everything is different. Dick didn't know how to look his daughter in the eyes. He was afraid that he now had no right to be near her at all. Elizabeth said that when he expresses himself to you like that, it seems to her that he is abandoning her. Dick said, "But that's not what he means. He's just apologizing to her." Elizabeth ran into her father's arms. "He doesn't have to do this. Elizabeth doesn't want her father to cry because of her." Elizabeth noticed that there was something else she wanted to tell him. My father noticed that she didn't even give him a little break from the news. This was really important. On the territory of Merds, there is a mine with magic stones. If Elizabeth remembers correctly, no one still owns this mine. She would like to engrave and supply them to people at an affordable price. The Count asked if she was doing anything to prepare for the coming cold weather. If he didn't believe her, Elizabeth would have done it herself anyway. The father did not understand at all what she was thinking about. Her father noted that now she sees that they can do this together. He said that he would contact the Duke of Baln as soon as possible and offer to go there together. He'll probably listen to Elizabeth. It's been a long time since Elizabeth went anywhere. She's so glad Daddy allowed her. Charlene was very happy because they finally met. Elizabeth can't even imagine how bored and worried Charlene was. Elizabeth was very grateful that she cared about her. They are friends, after all. Charlene said that Elizabeth looked beautiful and had become very beautiful. Ellie could say the same about her. Elizabeth is so glad that they received her well. It couldn't be any other way. Elizabeth is even more beautiful than they say. The lady felt great relief when she realized that Elizabeth was not like Jezebel. Elizabeth was surprised that they knew her sister. They said that she often goes to tea parties. But of course, they don't invite her to you. Her character is a little bad. One day the lady almost had a big fight with her. Jezebel often argues with other people. Things will get worse after her debut, when she is officially introduced into society. Charlene noticed Elizabeth's concern, so she suggested changing the topic to a more cheerful one. Still, Elizabeth better talk to Jezebel. Kihar learned that Elizabeth had woken up. She's starting to act, so they need to step up surveillance. They shouldn't miss the opportunity when it comes, because they have an obligation to bring her back alive. Kihar will not mind if she arrives with broken arms or legs, if she decides to resist. Grace said everything was almost ready, and they could brand her and keep her under control. And Elizabeth is extremely beautiful. Kihar just can't wait to see them. Leche asked the gentleman why he continued to create medicine if Lady Elizabeth had already woken up. Baln asked whether the guard really believed that the master should satisfy his idle curiosity. Her body has definitely changed, and yet the main thing is that Elizabeth can smile so carefree. The Duke decided to inquire what Leche wanted to report to him. The Creed family requested permission to explore the Merds forest. Baln was surprised by such suddenness. Leche noted that, to be precise, Mountain Mards. They say Lady Elizabeth plans to go there too. The Duke didn't quite understand why, but Leche unfortunately did not know this, and asked if he needed to know the reason, but the gentleman said that he did not need to. The gentleman said that he would give the answer personally, and at the same time he will see Elizabeth again. Father is not at the estate. Who would have thought that the Duke would decide to visit them in person? Elizabeth is hosting guests for the first time, so she is unsure whether she did everything right. The butler asked the lady if she was ready. Elizabeth asked hopefully if they had forgotten something. Burns said that everything was fine, because he had been doing this since the morning, and in his opinion, everything was perfect. It's time to welcome their guest. The Duke of Baln is already here. The butler told the lady that there was no need to worry so much. Elizabeth tried very hard. To avoid this, she needs to get permission to explore the Merds forest. Elizabeth will do everything to convey her request to him. It seemed to the Duke that they had already solved the problem of how to treat each other. For some reason, he seems a lot more relaxed than last time. As for exploring the forest, Elizabeth can do it as much as she wants. If she suddenly discovers something there, then the responsibility for it and ownership will be completely devoted to the Crete family. Whatever it is. Elizabeth, of course, is glad that he gave his permission, but she cannot shake the feeling that he knows something. The girl began to think about telling the Duke everything. Baln said that the reason he gave his permission without any questions was because you asked him to do so from the Creed family. The Duke has known the Count for a long time, and his trust in him is great. Besides, he knows that Elizabeth is a very kind person, so Baln doesn't know how he could not trust them. Elizabeth was very grateful to him, and she noted that she would definitely repay him for the trust he had shown. We'll be looking forward to this. Baln asked how about including him in Elizabeth's guard. There are many dangerous creatures in the forest, and the rocky terrain will be dangerous for only 2 people to move around. Elizabeth said that he should not worry because the knights of the Crete family would be with them, and her father is quite strong. In addition, her personal guard will go with them, and Elizabeth thinks that they will definitely not get lost. But the Duke was specifically looking for an excuse to spend time with her. At such moments, he regrets that she does not know what is in his heart, but Elizabeth is grateful for his offer. Balny was also glad at least for this. Elizabeth is terribly charming. The last time Elizabeth was here was when she was kidnapped. That's why she didn't know that this mountain was so steep. The father asked his daughter if she could move on. Elizabeth said she could, because she used to run 10 laps around. The father asked again, and she covered her mouth. Suddenly the Count grabbed his daughter and pressed her to him, thereby saving her from the arrow. The Count ordered everyone to get ready because they were under attack. Elizabeth was simply in shock. The Count asked if the knights had found out where they were, but there were too many trees, and it was quite difficult to identify. 4 of the guards are trying to find out the location of the attackers. Camel thinks that it would be better to move to a more open area. Father asked Elizabeth if she could go. The girl said that she could run. In such a situation, Elizabeth should not make them feel uncomfortable. A stranger appeared before them. Dick told Elizabeth to stay behind him. They surrounded them on all sides. Camel told the master that they needed to leave and leave them as a knight. Camel said that most likely these are all attackers, but they cannot be completely sure of this. Dick knew that he could put Elizabeth in even greater danger if she stayed here. Just in case, her bracelet contains spatial and protective magic. The father said that he would give a signal, and she should run as quickly as possible. The Count said that it would be the end if he got distracted. Rin told Elizabeth that they were still following her, so she should lie down. Elizabeth didn't want to believe that something happened to the guards and Dad. But Rin thought these were their allies. Elizabeth began to look for something in the rock. Rin screamed for her to stop because she needed to run as fast as possible. Elizabeth found a passage. She started to reach inside because there should be a seal there. It seems Elizabeth touched something. Rin shouted that they were almost there. Elizabeth found the same seal. The man behind him noticed that she ran well, just like for some girl. Elizabeth should have concluded the agreement quickly. The man didn't know what she was trying to do there, but it wouldn't work. Elizabeth simply must escape. The man told her that she would not succeed if she wanted to sneak away, because she had better follow him quietly. Elizabeth needs to bide her time, so she decided to ask who they were and who their owner was. The man said that she would soon find out everything herself. The main character didn't understand at all why she wasn't working. She screamed for them to let her go. If Baln had known that this would happen, he would have asked what kind of area they were going to explore. He was informed that intruders had been found in the forest. The Duke said that everything was fine, because these were Count Creed's people. The knight shouted that there were not only the Count's people there, because they had discovered traces of other people. The Duke ordered the formation of a search party of elite fighters, because it was impossible not to miss a single one. Balna would like it to be just a coincidence that there were intruders here. It was on that day that the Crete family decided to explore the area. Too suspicious. We need to catch at least one and interrogate. Baln decided that he should climb the mountain and look around. At the top, he saw Elizabeth. She fell straight into his arms. The Duke asked if she was okay. Herzog did not understand at all what had happened. She started hugging him tighter and saying that she thought she was going to die. But it was all just beginning. Baln asked Elizabeth to calm down. The bracelet is red, so he must have used up all his magic. She couldn't have hurt her wrist. The Duke told her to be patient a little. He began to go into the water and said that there was nothing to be afraid of. After all, he is nearby. I can't believe this is real. Therefore, Lisa asked the gentleman to tell him that this was really a dream. Elizabeth is so scared. What if she wakes up and ends up there again? Baln informed Elizabeth that this was not a dream. Dream or not, he will always be there and will always protect her. So Elizabeth doesn't have to be afraid anymore. The girl was very grateful because this time she was really afraid that she would die. Elizabeth thought that the time would come when she would say that death was the best option. She could not have imagined that as a result she would feel so calm. Elizabeth said that she had calmed down so he could let her go. The bracelet seems to have cooled down. Baln told Elizabeth to stop pushing and just hold on tight. Baln promised to deliver her to the duchy. Elizabeth agreed to this. She had absolutely no idea what happened to Dad and the rest and the knights. Rin said she was fine. She's sleeping now, so Elizabeth can't even ask her anything. Suddenly someone knocked on the room and asked if he could come in. It was the Duke. He bought this dress as a gift that he could give someday. As he thought, it suits her very well. Elizabeth asked the gentleman if anything had become known. The man reported that the Earl and the knights had returned to the county. It's such a relief that everyone returned safely. This is truly a relief. They just ran away at some point, so we can conclude that their target was Elizabeth. The main character decided that this was definitely the work of Grace and Kihara. There's no one else to attack her. The power they use is strong. Baln knew this might be hard for her, but he wanted to offer something. He felt like he was doing something bad. He asked how about living for a while at the Gaudian estate, because the Duke wants to protect Elizabeth from everything that could happen to her. Now Baln is sure that there is a spy in Count Creed's house. There may be more incidents of attacks in the near future. Any more, and Elizabeth would have misunderstood him. If so, I agree to go to the toilet, and she hopes that he will take care of her. Elizabeth understood that Dad would probably be worried. Balne said that he himself would inform the Count. Elizabeth said he was already busy. Balna still needs to discuss something with him, so no need to worry. Elizabeth realized that if they had anything to discuss, it would be something related to the attack. The Duke asked the lady to have a good rest today, and noted that they would meet tomorrow. It's probably better to find out about everything later. First, Elizabeth will ask Rin when she wakes up. Baln himself could not believe that they would live in the same castle. He even felt embarrassed by this. It seems they used black magic. The Count took hostages, and they had to interrogate them. The Count ran up to the Duke and asked where Elizabeth was. Balner reported that she was at the estate. The father can be calm because she is not injured and is completely safe, so there's nothing to worry about. You should worry more about the Count. Dick didn't quite understand why he came alone. Baln said with difficulty that Elizabeth would stay with him for the time being. Undoubtedly, his permission is necessary. However, it is much safer there now. More precisely, it is definitely safer there. As the Duke said, he is safer now. The Duke's estate is more closed, Timographia. Therefore, the likelihood that there is a spy there is minimal. There will be no leakage. Besides, he will definitely be able to protect Elizabeth. However, as a father, Dick feels absolutely disgusting. The Duke asked if he really thought that he could take advantage of the fact that she was weak now. The Count decided that this meant that if she had not been weak, he would definitely have done something. The Duke tried to explain that this was not what he meant. The knights sat in complete shock and did not understand what they were even talking about. Balna that he understood everything to me, so he began to make excuses. The Count understood him and asked him to take care of Elizabeth. The Duke said that he needn't worry because he would do everything to protect this one. Most of them managed to escape, and those they caught used self-destruct magic before they were interrogated. Apparently they were not strong in black magic. The Count believed that this was his mistake, because he failed to recognize the presence of the enemy in time, and the fact that he let Elizabeth go alone. Baln said that it was not his fault because he does not encounter black magic very often, and even despite all the training, the task of the knights is security. It is normal that they will be weak in exploration and assassination. The Count was simply in shock and could not even imagine how large the network of his informants was. The Count decided to ask if the mercenaries they encountered had anything to do with the temple. The Duke confirmed this. To be precise, they were sent by the chief priest Kihar. If the task of the knights is to protect a child with a mark, then the shadows protect the owner of the temple. The Count did not quite understand what could be so dangerous in the temple, since security was needed. Perhaps they needed an excuse. They needed to somehow increase their strength so that they could oppose themselves to the royal family. After all, in another case, it will be called treason. In the end, the true meaning of the temple fell into oblivion, and the number of false prophecies has increased. But the prophecy that Dale received. Prophecy was not originally limited to a specific place. Dale just happened to be in the right place at the right time. God doesn't particularly like to be tied to one place. It turns out that the Crete family was used by a temple that didn't even have a god. Bell knows what Dick is thinking, but he suggests solving problems as they arise. The Duke will contact the Count again soon. If only Baln had not taken the outstretched hand then. If the Duke had not fallen in love with Elizabeth, if in order to find her he would not have given up divine power, would she be happier because of this? Elizabeth told her father that she was fine, and everything was fine. Her father asked if she was afraid to be there alone. Elizabeth said that this was the Duchy of Gadian, and she would be safe here. After the father found out that Elizabeth was safe, they could do nothing. The girl is really fine. The Count said that he would make sure that their estate became safe. Elizabeth wished her father good night. Balny noticed that he was very worried. Elizabeth added that especially because they used black magic. The Duke did not understand at all how she knew that it was black magic. Elizabeth said that she just felt and guessed and doesn't even know how to explain. Balna that it's all thanks to the mark or she's already encountered such magic. Elizabeth asked the gentleman when she could return home. Baln has already started asking if it's uncomfortable to eat here. The girl immediately began to deny everything. Alice knows that he said that everything is fine, but she still has the feeling that she is causing him trouble. Yes, and Dad is worried. Baln believed that 7 to 10 days would be enough. The Duke said there were many interesting places here. There are so many of them. 10 days will not be enough. It's good to watch them all. In case she liked something, Baln would be happy if she thought she wanted to stay here. Elizabeth asked if he really meant that she could walk wherever she pleased. Baln confirmed this. Moreover, Elizabeth can look, touch, and take away whatever she likes. She can do whatever she wants in this house. Elizabeth didn't understand at all why he trusted her so much. Balna knows this is highly suspicious, but he can't tell her about what happened in the past. Even he sometimes thinks that it was all just a dream. The Duke said that he trusted Count Creed. Therefore, she, who is his person and the one he values, he also trusts unconditionally. He thinks this explanation will suffice for now. Elizabeth thought that he might have a secret that he couldn't share. This is not something that can be talked about now. Elizabeth said that she wanted to tell him something. She will be glad if someday they can share their secrets. As a result, Elizabeth was the first to raise the issue of profit percentage. Elizabeth asked if the Duke knew that there was a mine with magic stones. He confirmed this, but Baln did not feel any particular need for it, so he ignored this fact. But if she is the chief engraver, then he may well entrust it to her. So Elizabeth must do whatever she sets out to do. She was very interested in if there was at least something that the master thirsted for. Rin wanted to say something about that guy. But suddenly Rin flew away and said that it was nothing. This person. Rin suddenly felt so sad, or maybe it was her mistake. The Duke asked the butler what was wrong with Elizabeth. Rand reported that she was already up and noted that she woke up surprisingly early. The Duke wondered what she was doing. Rand reported that she asked if she was really allowed to explore the house. This is what she did. Now she's on the 3rd floor. He always reacts this way when it comes to Lady Elizabeth, so the butler is no longer surprised. Rand asked what he wanted to do with breakfast. The Duke decided to go and ask her. It looks like he should take back his words about how this doesn't even surprise him anymore. The training ground here is truly magnificent. The Duke asked what exactly attracted her here. The gentleman asked Elizabeth to tell him what she liked so much here. The Duke didn't quite understand why she was so surprised. Elizabeth said he just suddenly appeared out of nowhere. He was too close to her. And it seemed to Balna that she didn't like it, but it turns out that she liked the training palace. Balna really wanted to give her a gift. Elizabeth didn't quite understand why he was looking for her. The Duke wanted to inquire about breakfast. He wants to prepare if there is anything special that Elizabeth would like. The girl admitted that she had no appetite. The Duke said that skipping breakfast is not good. In that case, he can show her the house. Elizabeth was very grateful to the gentleman for accompanying her. She wondered if he treated everyone he trusted this way. And why did this suddenly become interesting to her? Elizabeth didn't even know that Mr. S.'s hobby was collecting works of art. Bon didn't think it could be called a hobby. He bought what he liked, traveling to different continents. And at some point, there were quite a lot of paintings. It warms your soul when you look at any of them. Elizabeth wondered if there was any reason why he bought these particular ones. This is a long-forgotten feeling of losing something important. Elizabeth really wanted to ask what this meant. It will be difficult to explain this to him now. Elizabeth noticed that he was hiding something again. For some reason, it upsets her so much that he has secrets from her. Therefore, she noticed that he had many secrets that he did not want to share. Elizabeth wondered if next time she could eat, she could hope that he would tell her his secret. Elizabeth told the gentleman that she would be waiting, and she suggested going to the next room. The Duke asked to wait a minute. To be honest, he has something for her. He'll show her the rest of the house next time. He really wants her to spend time with him. Elizabeth was surprised. She believed something had happened. Bon said that when they walk, she will already know. Elizabeth didn't understand at all why she was worried. As luck would have it, the gentleman sat down next to her. Bon said that he did not hear well, after which Elizabeth said that it was nothing important. The Duke asked if Elizabeth could try it on. The girl noticed that it was just like the one he gave her. The gentleman kept the design because it suits her very well and made the bracelet more powerful. It has more magical power, so it will be more useful than the one she is using now. And it won't just break. Elizabeth was very grateful to the gentleman and asked if she could wear it a little later. The Duke understood what she wanted to hide. He informed the lady that she did not need to hide it here. Elizabeth was simply shocked when she realized that he knew about the mark. The Duke said that only those whom he completely trusted could enter here, and they protect what she wants to protect. But more importantly, Balney wants to know everything about Elizabeth, from the little things to the most important details. The gentleman asked if she would allow him. Elizabeth didn't understand at all why he was doing this. He told her yesterday. Yes, he trusts her father, that's why he believes her. Elizabeth isn't sure. She asked if he was so kind to everyone he trusted. She asked if he told everyone that he wanted to know everything from the little things to the most important details. Elizabeth knows she's overdoing it. The master still sees her as a child. Maybe that's why he's so kind to her. But the girl may misunderstand his kindness and end up. The gentleman said that this is not true. He addresses her this way because it is her. He wants to know everything because it's her. He understands that his confession is rather sudden, but he wishes she would allow him to get to know her better. Elizabeth simply wanted to avoid misunderstandings. Well, now this. Looks like Elizabeth got the nod. When the Duke saw Elizabeth's reaction, he believed that he had ruined everything. But the girl denied everything and said that everything was fine. The man was happy. Still, he demands too much, wanting Elizabeth to want to get to know him better. But there is no need to rush, because she does not have those memories that could be considered past experiences or life lessons. The gentleman said that she just needed to be patient a little, because he wanted to put on a new bracelet for her. Elizabeth reassured herself that this was Mr. Baln, so everything would be fine with her. The mark he left behind. She is a little smaller now, but looks the same. Elizabeth called him, and the man began to believe that he had hurt her. The girl immediately began to deny it. She was just a little confused. Balney apologized for his tactlessness, but the girl said that everything was fine. The Duke said that she shouldn't always tell her everything was fine, especially next to him. If you can't, then you can't. If she doesn't like it, she should say so. The Duke wants her to be honest with him, but she doesn't do anything that he might not like. The gentleman asked if he was a man who did not do anything that she did not like. If she tells him now, he will be more careful in future. Rand knocked on the door and told the master that they didn't have much time. Apparently, he will have to hear the answer later, so he asks Elizabeth to wait here. Elizabeth thinks it's not something she wouldn't like, but it's not at all clear to her what he's going to be careful about. Creed County. Jezebel, of course, did not expect to be greeted with open arms, but there is absolutely no one here. Servants said they were under orders to provide her with only minimal support. Jezebel didn't quite want to believe that funding and relationships would be different. It's all because of Elizabeth. But the girl decided that she needed to control herself and remember what her mother told her. Jezebel understood them and threw them out of the way because she wants to rest in her room. The lady is in the wrong place. She will have to go to another building. The butler asked the master if he really wanted to leave Lady Jezebel like this. Dick said it was enough that she was swimming in money. The Count was even glad that Elizabeth was not at home. He asked how preparations for Elizabeth's debut were going. Burns just received a message about this. The Duke decided to take full responsibility upon himself and said that he had prepared in the best possible way. You can rely on him. Selection of dresses, jewelry, and even escort. Dick noticed that he could be trusted to prepare for the debut, although the rest may become a problem. Rand felt his master's gaze on him, but if he had not entered, then there would be trouble. Elizabeth completely forgot about her debut. The tailor asked if she could ask the lady one question. The woman asked what Elizabeth thought of the Duke of Balne. This question surprised the lady quite a lot. She has been serving the Duke for a long time, and this is the first time she has seen him care so much about someone. Therefore, she could not restrain herself and decided to ask her about it. She asked to forgive her if she allowed herself too much. She remembered the Duke's words that she was the only one he treated so warmly. The tailor has taken all the necessary measurements and will let you know when to decide on the design. They will prepare the best dress that will highlight her beauty. It turns out that this is a rather labor-intensive process. She has never prepared for her debut yet. In a past life, everything was different. However, there are still so many problems to solve. Balne asked if they were ready. The tailor began to shout that it was the best manners to barge in like that without warning. And yet, thanks to these wonderful people, Elizabeth is full of anticipation. This castle is always filled with silence, but in the mornings it is especially calm here. Still, the street must be lively. When she looked out the window, she was in complete shock. Just yesterday, there was a training ground here, and now it's completely empty. Now it seems even bigger. There would be enough space here to grow medicinal herbs, and there would still be some left over. The Duke probably had other thoughts when he ordered everything to be removed from there, but nothing could be done. Rand didn't quite understand why the lady was looking out the window like that. It was difficult for him to imagine that she wanted to go outside. He started running to her and asking if she needed anything, but Elizabeth denied it. She was just wondering where the Duke had gone. Rand understood her and said that he had some business to attend to, and he can tell her when he arrives. The Duke promised to return not too late. Elizabeth asked me to tell her. The butler offered her lunch while she waited.